म्यूट ऑल कर दो ना सबको, म्यूट करो, म्यूट कर दो ना, ताकि वो डोंट लीव इट को अपने आप अनम्यूट करेंगे ना, फिर वो सिस्टम वगैरह को दिक्कत। Good morning. May I request Sis to speak a word so that we can check the audio, please? It is unmute at the moment at your end. Okay.
Sir, ACGD Amit Singh from 8th Battalion, Gauchar, ITBP.
Okay. I'm just requesting if Sis could just tell a word so that we can be sure of the audio before we start.
Good morning, sir.
Thank you. It is very loud and clear.
आवाज कम कर दो, चली जाएगी सर आपकी आवाज, इसी से चली जाएगी।
Good morning, sir. Assistant Commandant Amit Singh from 8th Battalion, ITBP, Gauchar.
Don't worry, rest of you don't worry, and you will be heard, during the question answer session, and once we have the interactions.
Good morning, sir. Good morning, sir. From 17th Division, Assistant Commandant in Missing.
Okay.
Good morning, sir. Deputy Commandant Anjit, Northeast Frontier, Itanagar.
Two minutes to go. Dot 10 you should start. Dot 10 you should start.
Good morning, sir. Here Assistant Commandant Chandrasekhar from 19th Battalion, ITBP.
Okay. Don't go in for audio check now. You are all loud and clear, and don't worry. Sharp 10 we shall start.
Right, sir.
Don't do that, please. Sir, please just run the file and keep it aside. That you can attempt after this is minutes.
Good morning, gentlemen. On behalf of the Center for Joint Warfare Studies, I, Priyanka Yadav, Research Assistant at Center for Joint Warfare Studies, welcome you all today to the roundtable discussion on evolution of concepts and technologies, first-person view and one-way attack drones. I would like to invite Major General Dr. Ashok Kumar, BSM retired, CENJOWS, to give the opening address. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Priyanka. Firstly, I am grateful to Sis for giving the keynote address, and all of the attendees, because the drone warfare per se is making major transformations the way we have been fighting our battles so far. These have not only been evident in Russia-Ukraine war, Hamas-Israel war, and other conflicts, but they are also being used in abundance both during peace time as well as during the war time. We have seen these in the hands of insurgents, terrorists, and anti-national elements as well. So therefore, it remains a cause of concern for anybody who is concerned with the national security in all its manifestations. Initially, we have been hearing about the aircraft carriers, where the carriers were loaded with the multiple number of aircrafts. Then the era thereafter graduated to the helicopter carriers. And today, when I am speaking to you, the drone carriers have also been launched by some of the countries in making. You are well aware about the role of drones and swarm drones in ISR as well as in targeting and multiple other fields of action. But so far they were concentrating on the targets less the human beings, though they had that capacity also. Then came this concept of the FPV drones, the first person view, wherein the person who is trying to fly and control the drone can have look at the target. So while they are equally efficient against other targets, the conventional targets on which the other drones were effective, they have now been very, very effective against the individual soldiers. The individual soldier actually finds himself totally exposed in the battlefield where a drone flying comes and it detonates and he has got no option to checkmate because these drones with negligible radar cross section area flying low and with low signatures in all domains invariably cannot be detected. Of course, the 2 days back, now the news has come that some of the countries are trying to modify their small arms with some technological modifications as to how an individual soldier can be equipped to target the FPV drones. So today we wish to discuss the FPV drones and its rising challenge both as a option in offensive domain and also if our adversary uses how we can look at protecting our forces and resources from its effect. I'm glad that Chief of Integrated Defense Staff, General Matthews, has consented to give the keynote address. And I'm sure you all are going to benefit a lot today because we have a host number of speakers, the people from the war-fighting elements, the people from the services, people from the industry, I must confess the roundtable discussions which we have had are our Thursday lectures. Today is the highest number of attendees. We have already reached 56, and I'm sure we will be touching much more higher figures. This indicates the interest of stakeholders in the FPV drones and the related issues. And we shall have more of these things because the CENJOWS, the Center for Joint Warfare Studies, is now predominantly going to focus in the war fighting domain, and we shall be interacting on those related issues in much bigger manner in days to come. So with that note, I hand you over back to Priyanka.
Thank you, sir. Now I would like to welcome Lieutenant General Johnson P. Matthew, PVSM, UYSM, VSM, CIS, for giving keynote address. Over to you, sir.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Let me start by complimenting General Ashok and the CENJOWS for undertaking this venture. I think it's an excellent idea to have a roundtable discussion on this very a topic which has captured the imagination of all of us over the last few years. I'm a keynote address is what they've asked me to deliver. I'm just going to give some random thoughts because all of you are equally, if not better, informed on the subject. Because, like I said, this has been this is a very interesting subject, and all of you read and study this subject in detail. So when you look at it, there are two things that challenge a warfighter. One is to discern the intention of the enemy and to defeat him. Defeat means to destroy him. So discerning the intention of the enemy is what generally what we say acquiring the intelligence. So which is the ISR domain, intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance. And next is defeating the enemy, that is destroying the enemy, that is destroying his resources, his weapon, equipment, platforms, causing as much casualty to the enemy as possible, unacceptable damages so that he can't pursue the battle or war against you. So between these two domains lie the what we call the OODA loop: observe, orient, decide, and act. So the challenge has always been to compress this OODA loop, telescope or shorten the OODA loop, and compress the functions. And to my mind, what this new domain of warfare, if I may call it, the drones and the subject of discussion, the FPVs, what has it done is it has compressed this OODA loop, and also it is reshaped the outlook of this OODA loop. It's there starting from the ISR to the destruction. It plays a major role. So we keep saying the nature of war, it never changes. It remains the same, but it's the character of war which changes. And possibly what has happened is, to my mind, the drones are playing a major role in changing the character of warfare. So what's the character of warfare? It is essentially the techniques, tactics, and procedures. And since we are discussing FPVs today, I think you are looking mostly more at the tactical part of it, and possibly partly the part, and very limited the strategy part of it. So these drones has reshaped or is reshaping the character of war, essentially the TTPs, the tactics, techniques, and the procedures. Well, if you look at, when I say the character of war, all platforms, all whatever is there today, everything remains relevant. However, how they are applied and the relevance of each of those platforms, it keeps changing. That's what the technology, advancement in technology, that's what it does. So, yeah, we when was the first time when we, like the Iraq War 1 and 2, we saw it from our on our TV, in our drawing rooms. It captivated us. Similarly, the Nagorno-Karabakh, if I may call it, conflict, was what captivated our imagination as far as the use of drones are concerned. And everybody started writing about it. People thought that, okay, the wars as it is fought going to totally change. But there were two small countries, two small militaries fighting against each other in a very, very limited geography. But we saw destruction of tanks, artillery, equipment, command and control centers, causing casualties. And a lot of people wrote off a lot of other platforms saying that now the drones have taken over the war. But jump another few years, we see the Russia-Ukraine war, and of course what's happening in the Middle East, but more in the Russia-Ukraine war. And what we see is that there is a significant impact of this new technology, but the war fighting, the natural war, like I said, remains the same. Even the character of war, although it's changing, the platforms, every aspect of the conventional warfare still remains. Even in Nagorno-Karabakh, the final assault, Sutsha, that was the objective which had to be captured. That is captured by a very, very conventional attack by the Azerbaijani forces. So, what are those few things that we need to look at? Like I said, these are my random thoughts. Along with the development of this technology, with every technology, we find that a counter technology comes up. A counter to every system, there's a counter system that's developed. So we also need to look at the counter UAS systems, and what we have seen that in the Russia-Ukraine war, because after all, battlefield is the best place to understand the efficacy of a weapon or a system, and a lot of innovations take place in a battlefield. So we have seen tremendous innovation taking place and an exponential improvement in the use of this technology, both the exploitation of technology to influence the battlefield decisions, as also the counter to this technology, both exponentially developing. And in this, one very important factor is electronic warfare. I'll just read out one quote. I think it's by a Ukrainian general. He says, EW is the invisible scissor that cut off the connection of a device that's remotely connected. Then it was General Valery Zaluzny, who was then the commander-in-chief of the Ukraine Armed Forces. In November 23, he made a statement that EW is the key to victory in the drone warfare. So this is a subject which I think need a lot of closer attention and study. And while we talk about drones, how effective they are, I think this is a subject which is still possibly not getting the attention, at least in the in our military, in our country, from whatever research, whatever articles, publication that I see, and the discussion that I hear in the country, I feel we need to focus on this subject much, much more. That's electronic warfare. That takes me to the next point. That is, again, the guidance systems. How the Russians have been using the old gravity bombs, giving it guidance, the JDAMs, of course, against against static targets. And that brings me to the next point. You can possibly also equate the drones to ammunition. It's one of the major reasons why the Ukrainian armed forces took to drones in this very, very massive scale. The reason was, one of the major reasons was shortage of ammunition. So again, so it's giving a new perspective, UAVs and drones as ammunition. We got to look at that. So then, how do you group this if it is an ammunition? That's also something that we need to, again, deliberate. Of course, every unit, subunit would be equipped with drones, but to exploit this technology to get its full benefit, how do you group it? The Russians, it's well established. They have grouped it along with the artillery, and they have come up with a concept of something called a RSG, a Recce and Support Group, which has several, 5 units of the artillery and the drones along with that. So to carry out the recce and strike. So that's one method that they are following. What should be the methods that we should adopt? Whom should we group it with? That's another point worth discussing. Then again, coming back to the changing character of warfare, 2 platforms or domains which are being very heatedly debated are the tanks or the armored fighting vehicles, and next is the aviation, especially the fighter aircraft. The relevance of these 2 platforms, the armored fighting vehicles and the fighter aircrafts, that also is being heatedly debated. My view would be that, like I said, all these platforms remain highly relevant and would remain relevant into the distant future. It is just that how the TTPs, how they are going to be employed is what's going to change. Again, this is something which we may like to discuss and come to some kind of a conclusion. Tanks are concerned both in the Ukraine war as well as the Israel-Hamas conflict, the COP cages, the turtle tanks, all that's coming up. In the case of aviation fighter aircraft, the loyal wingman concept, or the MUMTI, that's the man-unmanned teaming. These are the changing character of war again. Next point is, who does this platform favor more, or this domain favor more? Does it favor the defender, or does it favor the attacker? Is it in favor of defense, or is it favor of attack? I won't deliberate on this subject. I would request you to discuss this. To my mind, possibly it favors the defense. So these are a few of the random thoughts and views that I gained in my extensive interactions with some of these countries who are fighting these wars now, and other domain experts. I would request you all to discuss this, and of course, so you all being subject matter experts, many other things. And like I said, every view, including my view, is open to change. Like they say, when you are presented new evidence, new viewpoints, new evidence, you change your opinion, and there is better evidence that's coming up. So at the end of this roundtable discussion, I hope you would find answers to most of these issues, some of which I highlighted, and of course what General Ashok talked about in the opening address. And as you all know, you all being followers of this, you all study this subject so well, and being subject matter experts, I'm hopeful that at the end of this roundtable discussion, we would have some good answers to how to exploit this technology and how to incorporate this technology into our war fighting in order to ensure our national security. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, sir. Now I would like to welcome Brigadier Anshuman Narang, retired. Brigadier Narang holds the Adani Defense Chair of Excellence on Warfare with a special focus on counter-unmanned aerial systems at CENJOWS. A keen China watcher and author of 3 books, he is working on a PhD topic titled Chinese Revolution in Military Affairs, and Centennial Goals Implications for India. His fourth book, PLS or BET Compendium, is under publishing. Today, he'll be speaking on introduction of FPV drones. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. May I first start, sir?
Yes.
Morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'll start with a video because a lot of questions that come whether Indian Army is inducted FPVs or using it or not. So I'll start with a video, and it is a video from a tweet of Eastern Command, and you may have a look at it, please. Thank you. Just go ahead. Thank you. May I have this presentation, please? The Russian, please go next. General Gerasimov, from whom this in Syria war, the Gerasimov doctrine came up, and he said, and I quote, "Combat was now unthinkable without drones. They are used by gunners, scouts, pilots, everyone." So, whether the wars which CIS talked about or what it is today, drones are doing the 6 disruptive tasks: the dangerous, difficult, dirty, decoy, destruction, and the dark. So any kind of such task which you don't want a man to do, the drones are doing it today. What has technically changed? Please see this. In February 22, when the Russia-Ukraine war started, you had whole set of missiles being fired, and slowly the kamikaze drones came in. When the the large drones could not enter, you had the kamikaze style drones coming in. Initially, they were long range, and this slide is not talking about short range still. And see, by November 24, as the number of missiles fell down, it is the number of drones which rose. And this is by data as of 25th November. So last 5 days of November 24 has still not been included. And see the phenomenal rise in the percentage difference between long range kamikaze drones and the missiles. So we go further. What has technically happened? Today, the battlefield is electromagnetically contested. GPS is denied. There is dense air defense, and there is an infestation of drones. What has happened to the warfare? It got still in Russia, Ukraine. It became static attrition. And there was a means, someone required to reinitiate and get the maneuver component back in warfare. When that maneuver warfare was challenged and they wanted to get back maneuver into this attritionist warfare, the innovation was required to meet necessity. And that innovation, can I have this control point? That innovation was required wherein the drones could penetrate the enemy airspace, because long range drones were not able to. And that led to something called the first person view drone. So as you saw in the video, it's nothing else. It is basically a video which is there with the person who's flying it, there is a quadcopter kind drone, there is a battery, and which is the main crux, how much time it is going to fly, and the weight constraints, and a remote control through which the pilot is controlling it. That's all, nothing else. Very simple components. But what changed? Russia-Ukraine conflict changed it completely. PLA, Indian Army are inducting it. PLA has gone with great speed. And it is claimed that the HTS group, which has just taken over in Syria, copybook style Ukraine conflict was applied to change the way they fought and immediately took over the areas. To define it, some people call it the homemade versions of loitering munitions. The Ukrainians are saying it a key battle winning factor in defeating many Russian mechanized assaults. And a simple phrase which has come is that big isn't beautiful anymore. What is this drone? 7 inches size, up to 2.5 kgs. Most importantly, catching a speed of 120 kilometers per hour. And this was when it started. They're now expecting it to go up. Yes, the batteries are constrained, range gets a constraint. So initially it started with 2, then came to 5 kilometers, and now 10 to 12 kilometers. We'll discuss the Indian high altitude constraint a bit later. And the time preparation required to launch, just 2 minutes from your hands as you saw it. What has it done? When maneuver was getting difficult, when drones were not able to do it, and speed was a constraint, keeping the AD radars and everything, they came up with modified the racing drones, which got in the velocity and maneuverability. Where cost was becoming a factor, artillery shells were not there, and you were not having the cost enough to run the war. Cheap, cost nature, commercially off-the-shelf available drones were used, modified, and it was inherent customization, absolute modularity, innovation at its best. Overall, the paradigm disruption between cost and capability at a much lower cost, something with lesser than $400 US. In fact, the latest pieces being provided by Russians are being costed at about just 4,000 rubles. So the Russians went about doing rapid prototyping, what Ukrainians produced, whatever they could manage catch, and they just copied it, and mass scale prototyping took place at great speed. Next is the immersive advantage. The pilot gets to see the battle as it is happening and way much beyond. You know, in Mahabharata, we called the Sanjay who could tell the battle to his king. But today, Sanjay is seeing it himself and engaging the target himself. You know, his eyes are deciding what his hands should do. Resource to result, highly affordable, gives significant tactical advantage. Detection, identification, either in a combination of a hunter-killer or at one person. Disruptive capability. There have been stages where the tanks in 12 kilometers from the front line have been kept behind and have been used in indirect firing role. So that's a significant change. You can't expect, no tankman will ever expect or accept to fight in an indirect role. The way infantry movement has got restricted, it's significant. So it became, in some battles, a tank versus FPV or an infantry versus FPV battle. Most importantly, where the section commanders, platoon commanders depended backwards for situational awareness, here they had a tool at their own hand. Their area of responsibility hardly being 2.5 to 3 kilometers, for section commanders hardly 500 meters. They had something which could see much beyond. They could control it themselves and have the battle in their control much ahead of it. Like the SIS brought out, it's a recce strike complex which has been made. It's become a compressed killware. And as we see the doctrine, if the detection took place at 0 seconds, the destruction was in less than 30 seconds. So detection has equal destruction with unparalleled, unprecedented precision. It's redefining close quarter battle. Please understand, when we used to talk about that the artillery fire will lift up 350, 250, 100 mortars fire. At that place, this close quarter battle, the FPVs are coming in and striking. And when we talk about the intelligentization, you'll understand that that last stage being AI enabled makes the target blocking much more easier. This is the Russian manual, which was there on FPV drones. It was on the Telegram channels and then copied on the LinkedIn. And most of you would have seen it by now. It talks about the advantages over standard quadcopters, which everyone has been using. What's the difference? I mean, it's just a quadcopter which has been changed into FPV. First person drone control, as I said, immersive control, instant response, maximum control over the drone. You are not going through different procedures or different observation system. Flight speeds, these are the racing drones, and hence the flight speed has enhanced significantly. Low cost and the average, but yes, you have disadvantages too, including the range and the flight duration. So we'll go ahead and see what this employment of FPVs has done and how it has shifted. The same General Gerasimov, Russian general, which I talked about, he said, the value of science is in the foresight. New challenges demand rethinking the forms and methods of carrying out combat operations. So we'll think about it and discuss this as we go further. That's the Ukraine Deputy Prime Minister, and he was also responsible for inducting technology. And he said, in this war, the courage of Ukrainians in technology will be the key to Ukraine's future victor, whosoever wins this battle. Can I have a confirmation if Group Captain Nadan is online now? So I'll halt here. Let Group Captain Nadan cover the counters to this and then get back and cover the employment.
Yes, I'm available.
Please go ahead, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now I would like to welcome Group Captain Dr. Narang, Medal retired. Group Captain Narang is a senior fellow at the Manohar Parrikar Institute for Defence Studies and Analysis. He has authored a book titled India's Quest for UAV and challenges a HQIDS SIDM report titled A Roadmap for India Becoming Atmanirbhar in Counter Drone Technologies and Systems in 2022 and research papers on aviation, drones, Make in India and self-reliance. He was a member of Drone Working Subgroup, Department of Industry and Internal Trade in 2020 to 21, High Power Steering Committee of Innovation for Defence Excellence in 2021 to 22, and study group on drones set up by NSCS in 2022 to 23 and participated in track 1.5 and track 2 dialogues. Today he'll be speaking on counter US measures, including cyber attack against FPV drones. Over to you, sir.
Just a message for all our listeners. We have interrupted Brigadier Narang because Group Captain Narang has a commitment with Army Design Bureau. So the presentation by Brigadier Narang will continue after we hear Group Captain Narang so that we can adjust his availability at both the points. Over to you, Group Captain Narang.
Thank you, sir. Grateful to you for accommodating me. And in fact, I'm missing Brigadier Narang's quite an interesting and valuable talk. I would have loved to be here. And I think it's a great initiative undertaken by CENJOWS and Atmanirbhar Soch. So I'll just come to the brass tacks. Threat. What do we mean by FPV threat? In short, I will discuss. I'll talk about counter UAV technologies. Thereafter, I will talk about what we have done in the counter unmanned systems. Thereafter, I will touch a little sensitive subject of vulnerabilities. Now, why I do sensitive is I am looking at a larger perspective, which we may be getting into trouble if we don't address it now. I will also talk about the interoperability challenges which are likely to emerge in the times to come. And lastly, I will talk of policy procurement challenges, including last remarks on organizational reforms which are needed to fill the current level of initiatives being undertaken by the defense forces. So basically what a small low flying FPV provides is a real life view to the drone operator. Now, details, I was listening to Brigadier Narang in the last 10 minutes, and he had really, Anshuman had brought out some valuable inputs on those and developments in the global scenario. What FPV drone does is it makes it accurate and dangerous. It really lets you feel where you are in the battlefield scenario, and you can really pinpoint. Your experience helps you identify and attack the right target. it's difficult to detect, less reaction time. Why is it difficult to react? Because current radars, current air defense systems are not meant to track those small, slow, rather now it is a fast, but it is still a small drone, which is being coming at a very short, from very short distances at very low heights. And even neutralization systems were not meant to destroy such small targets. This I will bring out in my presentation and we'll discuss about it. So what do we need the counter drone system? We need detection, tracking, neutralization, and destruction. Initially of slow and small, but now it is fast and small is also getting added into the threat scenario. So what all we need? Radars, current radars cannot pick up small drones. They cannot pick up low flying drones, especially in the certain ranges which we want. And when you develop these radars certainly will not have a range which a normal conventional radar comes up. Similarly, radar designs have to change so that they can pick up a low flying threat. So probably we may have to elevate radars or find some solutions. And new technologies have to be adopted, and AI and other automations have to be adopted. Similarly, RF systems. Your FPV drone is as much susceptible to RF system as any other drone. But when it is not susceptible is when it is being controlled by remote wires or something, which I'll bring out. Electro-optic systems can also be used to pick up infrared in certain situations. Acoustic systems have not proven very effective and they have a very short ranges. But these are the potential technologies which world is working on. So how do we neutralize this? You jam the RF link or GPS. Here there is no GPS. So RF link is the only option. Spoofing of GPS is again out. Takeover of a FPV drone. Now that is possible. GPS will come into play if it is sent in an autonomous mode, which is quite unlikely. Lasers. Lasers are used to dazzle its electro-optic and IR sensors. If you blind him what he's seeing, you can really, make his operations fail. Now this is where the disruption comes. Fiber optic cable control FPV drones. So various trials are being done where this cable is controlling the FPV drone. So they are getting the full feedback and you are not able to detect anything. Now, this makes all soft kill systems ineffective. Now you look for a hard kill systems. So now let's look at those hard kill systems. One is you destroy their electronics, for which HPM, high power microwave, is needed. And for this, research is happening all around the world. I will bring out what we are doing on this subject also later. Hybrid system, where you have a multiple detection systems. You have a electro-optic, IR, as well as radar systems for the hard kill. And in case it is using the RF link, then of course you have systems also. Kamikaze drones. Now, drones are the ones which act as a counter drone system. But the issue what happens is, how do they get activated? So there are world over people are trying to do research where they are able to launch these drones in an autonomous mode. So that kind of technologies people are testing, and many countries are like US Army Research Laboratory has been funding many startups for the last 4 years, where they are developing radars, maybe more than 4 years. 4 years I know of radars and this counter drone system. They tested the net just to use it for civil version. Simultaneously, they are using the kamikaze drones. And there was a project on Swarm drone. That Swarm drone project of US Army, Navy, and Air Force. Some of those participants are also looking at the counter drone and counter drone swarm capabilities. Similarly, now remember our helicopters operate very close to the border. Your supplies on the border posts are controlled by your helicopters. These helicopters are going to be vulnerable to these FPV drones if they are on the border. And similarly, your attack helicopters and all those. Now, these FPVs will be difficult to be detected by the helicopters on their own onboard systems. So that will be a new challenge. Similarly, you have air defense guns, you have guns with the soldiers and shotguns, which Air Force, some of these situations we carry. Their ammunition is not tuned to really neutralize such small threats. Your HMG, MMG and other guns which you have, can we develop ammunition is a question which world over people are doing research on. Lasers. Initially, I spoke about lasers blinding the FPV drone. Can lasers be used to destroy an incoming drone? The main issue or limitation of laser is its ability to remain focused on the critical part which it wants to destroy. That can be propeller or any other part. In fact, Chinese are developing laser paints and reflectors to reduce effectiveness of the lasers. So we must be keeping abreast with what the adversaries are doing. And Chinese do a lot of research and development, and they keep track of what is happening in the world. So two key aspects which probably will impact the counter drone capabilities: autonomy. Autonomy to launch on its own if required, and then human control oversight over it, so that time lost is saved. Once it is launched, then you can of course take over and control. Secondly, the new munitions which we have to be developed, so that though that munition which you use it against a drone is able to effectively neutralize it. What do? We have various mechanisms. I think all are people who understand, so I'm not going to cover on these aspects. Even we have a collaboration with the US. The problem which I find between India and US is US Air Force Research Laboratory, Army Research Laboratory, and Office of Naval Research. They have been coming to India and interacting with our startups. In our case, our design bureaus do not have the research experts who can actually be part of such design development projects. We have only been giving problem statements. Whereas when I see the US team, when they come, they visit the startups' design facilities, and they find collaboration what they want. So that difference or major gap between Indian R&D approach or technology development approach and our collaboration partners of the leading countries, this gap has to be bridged, which I will briefly cover. So major shock came to us when 27 June 2022 base was attacked. We all know it. So a lot of initiatives are taken. These are indigenous systems developed by various companies. There's RF system and multi-sensor, multi-shooter system. The challenge, which this is the one which is developed by the DRDO, which is called D4, Drone Detect, Deter and Destroy System. It's a multi-sensor, multi-shooter. When I say multi-sensor, multi-shooter, it has got a radar, it has got a RF detector, RF jammer, laser neutralizer, and they were doing research on integrating a defensive drone, or rather, defensive drone in terms of whether it carries some system to destroy an incoming drone, or it acts as a kamikaze drone. How much it has moved, I need to validate it. So how are IDEX has helped? So I have just narrowed down some of the drone and counter drone challenges which are launched by the three services. But whether we know of each other, so I just thought I will highlight this to talk about illegal use of drones. So basically it was a challenge for detection and soft kill solutions. Similarly, there was a DIS-5 miniaturization. Various sensors were supposed to be developed. I really not kept track of this one. DIS-6 had a handheld hard kill counter drone system. DIS-9 was forensic, which probably we get it for smuggling, so I am not going to talk about it. Drone detection based on 5G. I think this is the latest initiative which Air Force is doing it. Similarly, AVNL has taken up a anti-drone system for armored vehicles, a counter bubble for VPs. Recent is cyber takeover of drones. This is very recent. Just last month, or rather this month, it has been given. This problem statement has been given, where we want the incoming drone to be taken over. Either we make him land or make him crash land. So that is what is there. Now there is one gap which I find is IDEX for 4G. We have under leverage. I think we need to think about it. Aditi has some promising projects, especially if you come to Aditi 2. It talks of a high power laser source, 10 kilowatt. And I was talking to one of the scientists. He was saying it is possible that we can have two laser beam split being used for maybe more laser being split if we do really hard research. Theoretically, it is possible. Probably we need to look at these technologies. Similarly, high power IR detectors, because current IR detectors have a limited frequency range. So, and of course, limited range. And now people are looking at if we can develop high power detectors. Similarly, the Navy is looking at destroying the enemy's air defense, where they are using a swarm. Similarly, high power microwave weapon system, which is proposed by the Indian Navy. I think this is what we were talking of HPM system. Only issue is they are trying to do it for autonomous vehicles as well as autonomous aircraft. But this technology, even DRDO are pursuing. What stage they are there? If they are going to the private sector with this problem statement, remember IDEX is also open to the public sector. Not the Aditi 3, but when Meher Baba initiative was launched by the Air Force. So in Meher Baba competition, which I am bringing separately, we allowed even public sector to come and compete. IDEX, I don't know whether it is there, whether it will lead to duplication or whether it is just a, we are working in a silos. I think that part we will have to ascertain. Now, this is the vulnerabilities which Indian Armed Forces are working on. And this I want, it's not to highlight which company it is there, but if you look on top, this is a made in India gun. And surprisingly, it matches a lot of the guns which Chinese are developing. And even the Indians who are developing, this will become a vulnerability. I will show you a video at the end to understand what it can mean in the lifetime. Today, you can say they are, responsibilities of the OEM, but our soldiers their life is online. This part has to be taken into consideration. Now, this is another gun which, made in India versus, what the Chinese are developing. Surprisingly, they are matching. And the third one, this is the radar. Made in India radar, part of a multi-sensor system being offered to the Indian Defense Forces. And I think some are being procured. And these are surprisingly matching what Chinese are developing. Now, imagine this is Ukraine soldier using a Chinese so-called open source thing, and watch the video. So this is the risk of using drones or counter drone system tomorrow. If our counter drone operator is identified and Chinese are to really pinpoint and kill our people, we will not be able to, find happy about it. So this part has to be taken into consideration. And remember, after this incident, hundreds of Ukrainians have died because they used open source drones and components. Today, we are talking of innovation. This is after they lost hundreds of Ukrainians. And the Ukrainian vice president went on air to call CEO DJI that you will be responsible for all this. But that doesn't matter. They had lost hundreds of soldiers and civilians. So large number of imported COV, counter UAV systems in the inventory of defense forces and CAPFs. Remember, CAPFs are also procuring, and their monitoring system is even not as strong as far as I know about it. So this part during hostility, we will have to keep it in mind. We need to recheck our inventories. Maybe similarly, radars or counter drone system. I'm just telling, we give the operational requirement. we need to check all these subsystems. So I'm pointing you out because these systems, if we don't check, we don't know which system will have these vulnerabilities. Today, I'm attending a program by the ADB where we are looking at the component level vulnerabilities. Same things we will have to do a component level vulnerabilities of our counter drone system. Otherwise, we might be found wanting. The next issue is of interoperability. We have multiple counter drones and counter drone systems, multiple stakeholders using in the same area. These drones, whether we are jamming our own drones, similarly, whether those counter drone systems are impacting ourselves, this part will be a major challenge in the times to come. Who will be responsible for air defense? Secondly, how do a nearby BSF or CAPF or ITBP, which is nearest to the army unit or a Air Force unit, how do they handle a drone which they have just identified and they can see that it is passing to the nearest entity? So a military UTM, unmanned traffic management system, it is being tested world over, it is being inducted world over. I think we are not yet on that. We are not really given it a problem statement, and I think we need to give it a problem statement. Otherwise, we will be late. And this problem statement, remember, it has to have the CAPFs as one of the stakeholders, because some other situation we will be working with CAPFs and the other services. So this part has to be kept in mind. We don't have a national policy. These are the last two slides. I will not take long. There's a policy which is being dealt by the cabinet secretaries on the use of jammers. But counter drone technology development, manufacturing, and even export if required, I think we need a national policy. It was part of my studies report. Similarly, we need a airborne counter UAS system, as I had raised earlier issue. Because airborne counter drone systems, same FPV drone can also attack your own helicopters and drones, the larger drones. We need a R&D program, a non-cooperative detection. When I say these are the advanced radars which we are developed, because these radars not only have to be developed for the smaller drones, they have to be miniaturized so that we can carry it. Some private companies are doing, but a cohesive problem statement under Aditi is required from our side. High power microwave just launched. I'm happy, but I think all three services should get together to see whether it meets your requirement, because when HPM comes up, we realize it may not meet our requirement. It is very, very specific to the naval requirement. So I think we should get involved in it. Counter UAV swarm, we all know swarms have really swarm of FPV drone coming into your formation. How do we counter that swarm of drone is one we have to work it. This initiative has been launched just now. Whether we all stakeholders on board, because we will realize our specific problem statement will be different. Civil drone, digital skies system is not operational. So you really don't know your own civil systems are operating sometime, because your airspace is open, 90% of the airspace is open as much as 15 kilometers from the border. So I think Ministry of Civil Aviation has to be told that you please activate your digital sky. Otherwise, it is going to have a problem for us. Similarly, military civil UTM, military I have said, civil UTM will be important. Man-unmanned teaming. How will these own drones and the counter adversary drone, and if you have a helicopter being operating, how do you have a communication? Or if a helicopter detects this rogue drone, how does he intimate the local thing? These parts have to be worked out, and standards and standardization and certification of counter drone system. When I say standardization of certification, what should be the emission policies, whether it has an impact on other systems, whether it impacts the health of the people. Similarly, how people have to operate, how they should be certified. These parts, have to be worked out. QRs alone will not do it. Procurement is a major problem. That procurement ownership will have to be taken by the defense forces. We have to form a specific small technical team. We don't need very many people, 2-3 people who are domain experts, who can really ensure that procurement part does not have vulnerable components in the procurement phase. Must be made mandatory for the drones and the counter drones. The 3 services, tri-services policy is required. And we should not only check the private sector, we should also check the public sector. Because some of the systems are coming probably may get overlooked. This part has to be said. And I think one national policy is required for the defense is indigenous design, developed, manufactured certification mechanism. Now, this part today, we are saying we have a policy. Recently, we converted that IDDM, definition is changed from 50% by cost to material, software, and the components. But who will assess it? So that policy has to be made into each system and subsystem. If I'm talking of a drone or a counter drone system, I should say that that cyber stack of these subsystems must be indigenous. And this will have 10%, 15%. Today, we are keeping a we are really not addressing it. It will become a problem. Database of IDDM manufactured with their IDDM products, because same IDDM manufacturer, some of the IDEX winners are also selling the imported product. So we must be very clear. It's not only the company, it is also the product, very, very clearly. Certification, as I have said, a very, very specific IDDM certification entity has to be designated. Semilac certifies a product for operations. They don't certify for indigenous design, though they have the capability, but they don't have the resources. So those mechanisms have to be addressed. Personally, I feel R&D verticals in the headquarter IDS and DMA should have a research and development vertical, a very small vertical. We don't need the full R&D, but we need a research, development, and design vertical which understands with the manned by the technical experts and not by journalist officers. Similarly, CAPF's, my recommendation is there. IDEX for 4G should be used to identify the talent which can be manning these people and address our problems. And we should have one lab, tri-service lab, which have the expertise to check the vulnerabilities of the three defense services. That's all, sir. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you, sir. Now I would like to call upon Brigadier Anshuman Narang to speak upon the employment of first-person view drones, a new paradigm in drones warfare, lessons incorporated by PLA. Over to you, sir.
So we are recommencing what we had to interrupt because of the commitment of Group Captain Narang. So, Captain Narang, thank you very much, and join back. At least listening and sharing your views once you are back from ADP. The link is already available to you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Grateful.
Thank you, sir. Grateful for the insightful talk. Continuing further and on the part of how FPVs have revolutionized warfare. Now, any revolution in military affairs, you ask any academician or anyone, we'll ask, there have to be four things. When you say it has revolutionized warfare, the concepts have to change. There has to be a change in the doctrine or the tactics. There have to be some organizational changes. And lastly is what is the technical evolution which has taken place. If all these four criteria have been met, then you realize that yes, it has revolutionized military affairs. Commencing each one of them one by one. Firstly, coming on to the concept. Okay. Now, first concept which it has led is collaborative innovation. It's being said that finally technical innovation is back to the battlefield. When Russia-Ukraine war started, you had the large drones, TB2, Bakhtiar variety which came in. But with the dense AD, significant EM contestation, it was only for few months wherein the Ukrainian roads you could find the TB2 effect. Thereafter, it became a problem. And hence, they had to saturate the air defense by getting a large number of small drones. And that is how those small drones made an entry. Now, Russia didn't have the capacity to have, manufacture so many small drones because, like the Western armies, Russia was also into big drones and large drones. So the first thing came was the miniaturization of the drones and that to mass commercialization of it. So they had to rely on the Chinese Mavic, DJI, or the Iranian Shahid loitering munitions. Now, these drones had slow speed and high cost, particularly when you were looking at moving targets, and some of those small drones required stability for hovering over a particular area. Thus, they came up that let's modify. And that was the innovative solution, that you got low cost racing drones and upgraded them to FPV drones. Now, FPV drones were having problems of, they could enter bunkers, they could enter buildings, but they were not able to find ways and means of entering vegetation cover. Then came another innovation. They started dispensing thermite, creating 2000 degrees of temperature, had automatic target recognition, so that in that vegetation cover also you could identify a man and create it. So these FPV drones then were being jammed by radio frequency jammers. Then you got into AI, machine learning, where in that last mile guidance, the machine learned how to lock onto a target and the pilot could hand it over and off. And what Group Captain Naram talked about is the introduction of fiber optic FPVs. Now, when you are not emitting anything, how do you jam a fiber optic FPV? And those ranges started with 2, because the problem was how much of fiber optic cable you could carry. It is now the latest. Russia has tested yesterday 15 kilometers of FPV with the fiber optic cable. That's because it requires 2 innovations. First is to carry that much more, and second is to minimize the load of the fiber optic cable. Of course, the counter drone systems are evolving, and that's the flavor which we have to consider today. How do you get EW resistant? Now, the Ukrainians came up with the concept of Brave One Defense Cluster. What it did, it conducted a cyber hackathon from 28th November to 2nd December. And all the manufacturers were required to fly their FPVs in a 14 kilometers intense EW environment. And of all those who came to that nursery which was made, succeeded. And then they picked up solutions from it. So about 35 or 45 vendors, if I have my figures correctly, participated, and 7 of them succeeded. Now, 7 succeeding to fly their FPV through such intense EW, you optimize the solutions together, integrate all the civilian sensors together, because it's a national survival which is on there. And that's how the innovation came out. And then, of course, is cyber hacking, which we shall be discussing. And I'm quite sure Navneet will cover some of these aspects in his presentation today. So, second was this issue of rapid prototyping. Now, we talk about combat sustenance. This war, which was supposed to be just a 1-week special operations, had to test the Russian manufacturing capacities. When they started, they realized they were not required. But see the number of tanks, the number of munition, and then they came up because their industry was not prepared to manufacture small drones. And the aim which was given is by 2027, Russia should be the leading drones manufacturer in the world. So not relying on Chinese, taking over the capacity building, that rapid prototyping increased. So a lot of conceptual changes took place in the battle, and those are significant. Now, as far as the drone tactics is concerned, now for all those who are new to FPV, it is important to understand what a drone crew can be, a FPV drone crew. First, and of course, the most important requirement is of the FPV operator, who has to be there. Then second, you have an option of making it killer hunter option. That is, you have a reconnaissance drone which is flying separately, who is the hunter, and you have the FPV operator who does the killing. So the recce drone does not get lost, whereas the FPV drone gets lost in a kamikaze attack. Then they realized the variety of ammunition which was required. They put an ammunition specialist, because sometimes it was a grenade launcher, sometimes it was an MMG, sometimes it was a thermite bomb, and sometimes just a normal bomb. So they were losing lives in the way the ammunition was being mounted. So because a new drone is being launched, you will merge the ammunition, they lost lives. So hence they included an ammunition specialist. And to control this all, yes, you have an option that you have a separate crew commander who is handling it. So there were a lot of these things which got added, and as the battle was being fought, the doctrine evolved. Now this is straight from the manual which I talked about. First classic hunter-killer I have discussed. But the other part is the free hunting. So now in this, you have no other crew. The FPV drone operator is independent. He just launches FPV, he keeps searching for a target, he finds a tank, hits it. His drone is gone, he launches another drone, finds another target, hits it. So that's free hunting. So both these are normal tasks, nothing innovative, but yes, what is being used. Then you come on to FPV group strikes. What you do is drone operator who's the reconnaissance chap. He's just monitoring of the number of targets are there. And there are group operators who are sitting together and launching. So when you have a tactical formation of a platoon of tanks which is moving in 4, 5, 6, as many tanks, they are launching that many FPVs and they are targeting the tanks and restricting their maneuver. Second, of course, is the assault squad, what I talked about. When that assault is going to take place, rather than men assaulting, to clear those bunkers, to clear those fortifications, you have these FPVs who move in first. There is a drone which is operating, wrecking that area, and along with the assault, final attack has to happen in the last 100 meters. First, the FPVs go and clear it, and the final assault takes place. So that's redefining the way the battle is being fought. Drone ambush. What you do in an area, rather than a man sitting, you put a drone hidden at a place. You have 4-5 hours of battery. You let it sit idle, and moment someone comes near, a tank comes, it launches and hits the target. So that's a drone ambush. Combined strike. You have today a bomber kind of UAVs, a marsupial concept, which carry a lot of bombs. So you combine this, because what happens, like, if you get back to normal operations, you had a concept of MLRS strike. You fire FA, you get the men out of bunkers, and then you fire a cluster or other kind of ammunition. So here, while the bomber is going to get activated, before that, you have a thermite being fired. So people get heated up, they come out of the bunkers, and that's the time bombers hit. So it's a combined strike which they undertake together. This is a double blow. What happens is there is an obstacle, you're not able to hit, or a tank. So first it hits, so the tank's ERA panel will get activated. Now, after that ERA panel has got activated, that's the spot which you identify where it's now become a weak spot. So you have a second one. So a double blow. You have hit a house, you've crashed the window, the first FPV is gone. A second one goes inside and then hits with a thermobaric charge or a cumulative charge. So it's a double combination. Then, of course, the option of relay UAV, wherein you have a range gets short. There is a relay UAV which goes in SS. Engineer tasks, mining, counter mobility, activating the mines which have already been put by the enemy. So both those engineer tasks also being performed. And a normal FPV reset, you reconnoiter, you drop ammunition and get back. So rather than being a kamikaze role, it just goes, drops in ammunition, doesn't hit it, and gets back. Thermite one, which I already discussed, creating fires and creating a lot of problem, and it's significant temperatures which it creates. Then aerial kamikaze roles, or hitting like a FPV raid. You go near a point, the SF is already there, and at a particular time, all the 4-5 FPVs are ready, and it hits together. And those FPVs get activated from much behind. You know what has happened? You've gone, you placed FPVs like that ambush which I talked about, and at a particular time, those FPVs get launched together, and a raid takes place. Now, to amplify the aerial kamikaze role, you see the FPV on the protection of the sky. So there is a Hector, you hit it, or there is a UAV which is flying and it launches the FPV to target the other things coming nearby. So that's a new way the FPV roles are functioning. Then another concept called FPV in the uterus or the marsupial drone concept. So the mother UAV is carrying, that is within the uterus, that is within the payload being called the uterus. These FPVs are carried and multiple FPVs are launched from the mother drone, which also functions as a relay drone. On via OFC, through OFC, like we had those ATGMs earlier, fiber optic this thing, same way, these fiber optic FPVs are being launched and changing the way the battle is fought. Next, which is also used in urban battles and counter-terrorist operations, you do not want to enter a building. So a special short-range UAV is launched, which does clear the building and comes out. broadcast. They ensured a lot of, I mean, both the countries, Russia on the Ukraine and Ukraine mainly on the Russian part. The drone operator uses a speaker, it goes and ensures the infantry surrenders and moves along as way the drone is flying. So, you know, a drone is flying over you, it is ensuring you're surrendering and ensuring the route followed is absolutely correct. So that's another way and innovation of using it. Last one on this part is the flipping FPVs. You know, you keep changing between launching your, or getting out your propaganda outlets, leaflets and dropping them. So 200 of them in a 2 kg payload could be done. So these are the various means they have used. The latest one which they have just done is yesterday, they've had a USV carrying FPV drones. So unmanned sea vehicle being launched and carrying FPV drones, and then the FPV drones are being launched to target the Russians in the Black Sea. So significant improvements which are undertaking. Now the countermeasures which will get discussed, I will just highlight few from that manual which they have come out. Basically, is rather than countering the platform, because that's so much, they have now started targeting the crews, because crews training requires a lot of time. So that site from which the FPV is being launched itself, they are trying to hit the crews. Second effect is use of unmanned ground vehicles and robotics, and which when we talk about China, you saw in the Zhuhai Air Show, they've tried to use it. Another very innovative thing which has come out is reducing the time spent in front line. So that 12 kilometers or 12 miles as they're calling it, technically more than 12 kilometers, but more than 12 kilometer range has hardly been achieved by FPV. It's only in a relay mode they're getting to do it. So in that area, if you are not able to move infantry and tanks, how do you cover that area? So they have started using motorcycles, and you see the Russian sections assaulting in motorcycles. So that's a significant way. Of course, drone nets are there. Laser device, as Group Captain Naran pointed out, it's very important to be able to hit that particular rotor or the camera. A passive means a lot, and mainly it has led to redefining your drills and procedures, which we shall discuss a bit later. Now, what has the FPV affected the tactical battle area? The temporal exposure. How much time are you going to allow your troops to be in open? And I gave you an example of motorcycle assault. You can't assault on tanks because the tanks are going to be lost. You can't assault foot. Come up with a via media. The roads are short, you use a motorcycle. So the temporal exposure of the troops has to be reduced. The spatial move, moving from one fortification to another, moving from one place to another. The frontline presence, who all are the troops you are going to allow in that front line being covered by this. Then of course, it's a significant amount of drone fear which is being brought on the Russian and Ukrainian troops. And there are ways and means of this manual, they are spreading psychological propaganda of how that psychological fear has to be overcome. In night, you use of heat and flashlight, that TI will pick you and come near you. The point of innovation to induction. Now, used to innovate, and it used to take a whole time to induct. And as Group Captain Naran rightly pointed out, the technical expertise in R&D. So that whole cycle has to reduce. During the battle itself, you're coming up with an idea. It has been tested by a defense cluster and being implemented. Now you need to maximize the combat dispersion. You know, in normal, they used to talk about Ukrainian infantry platoon being in 250 meters. They've spread the Ukrainian companies today. Like we understand our scenario, while not being open domain, we'll not discuss that. But 3.5 kilometers being occupied by a Ukrainian company. Survivability, concealment methods have changed. I mean, you used to look at satellite, have a multispectral chemonet, but this way, when your FPV gets AI enabled, the machine learning is there. You have to innovate your survivability and concealment methods, movement speed, precision, accuracy, the production capacities. Next, we've discussed, but multi-domain resilience. There will be cyber hacks. There will be drone organizational structures. Putin just in his last week announced that he's going to have a new drone force within his army. Like the Chinese came up with a cyber force, a space force, and an information force. He's saying he's going to have a separate drone force. Yes, the counter-US grid and very rightly brought out the CAPF, the army, everyone, it has to be a whole of nation counter US grid. How do you hand over where a rogue drone is coming in? It may be as small.
Impact
The
of
approach,
FVV
onwards, you have
or
to modify.
EBA.
Then Killer Hunter, we discussed that, how you integrate reconnaissance strike complexes, cyber electronic warfare, and yes, the 12 miles gray zone already discussed. Technical evaluation, I said innovation is back. Very important thing, what has happened in the US defense manufacturer. If they have to get anything into the US defense forces, that Ukraine battle tested tag has to be there. So this war, particularly with the FPV and all the EW technologies being tested, has become a lab wherein if you are not Ukraine battle tested, you're not going to get impacted. A solutions battle, a methodology where a combat problem is there, problem is identified, the solutions have to be found within the battle itself and proven in the battle. So that's significant, and that is going to further lead to intelligentization. You know, the data which is being captured, that data will get automated, algorithms made, which will lead to optimization. And finally, doing the dirty task, the machines have to enhance the machine. MUMTs, as the SIS pointed out, have to get enhanced. And in that, robots are going to play a greater role. So this bending of technology curve has happened, and that's significant. Sorry, the slide. Next, of course, the counter-US advancements. See the interception rates required. And that leads to another issue. If it is not the EW jammers which you are using and you're going to use your normal AD, the AD is going to get saturated. So, and to a vulnerable area, a critical area, you can't store that. I've stored my medium range SAM and use it only against an aircraft when it comes or a missile which gets fired. If this drone is going to cause trouble, the cost has to be kept in mind. Detection difficulties. How is the OFC going to be picked up? Now, see, this is, of course, this will have a lot of propaganda, but it will give you the general way. So this is the Ukrainians saying how much of drones fired by Russia they have managed. And still, there have been a lot of drones which have not been shot down. That is how the destruction is happening. So how the battle is evolving is interesting to follow. And this is just a parameter where the start point was. You know, when the war started, Russia was literally at zero in small drones. And it has reached to a capacity of 100,000 drones being produced per month. Ukrainians learned their lesson in 2014. And these kind of FPV drones, racing drones gained traction in 2020, basically the small drones. And when they entered battle in 2022, losing their men to Vectors and others, they realized, oh, this is a way out. The Western firms jumped in, had the test bed, but the cheap Chinese and Iranian drones technology held sway. So another important lesson, the era of Western technology domination in the small drones is over. And it means anyone can do it. You have to put your ecosystem together. The Russians were poor in training. The pilot skill required is nothing less than 3 weeks. And I'll just give you a personal example. We were training some pilots, and old people, it was a problem. And we had some children. Those children picked it up in 2 days because they're used to gaming. And they had an Independence Day function and they flew it so well, unfurling the national flag through our FPV drone. I mean, so you have to identify the talent, pick up the right talent and have them trained well in time. The quality difference was there. Now see the target strike rates, and that's when the cost balance comes. The Russians, because of the training, were not able to hit. The target strike rates were extremely low. And the Ukrainians, due to the training, could ensure that all the while the strike rates were more than 50%. So if 10 FPV drones go, you are able to hit 5. So a balanced mix. Even Ukraine, which was purely reliant on Chinese small drones, shifted because that access was being denied. In meanwhile, they used those European people to get some of those drones. But finally, they've come up that original combat solution is the way ahead. Organization structures. This is the, I told you about the Brave One. It's a defense cluster which has been created. Now, more importantly, it is functioning right under Ministry of Digital Transformation together with Ministry of Defense. What Ministry of Defense is doing, Ministry of Defense is providing them a lab to test. And any civilian vendor is free. The Brave One Defense Cluster puts those things together, and numerous number of units come and do that so-called NCNC trials together. And together they manage to get these solutions and put it in place. So, including the data enablement and the artificial intelligence. FPVs have faced the change of range, which have been overcome by mother and marsupial drones. Payload weight. Day before, there are videos which are circulating of Chinese, Russians testing 4 FPVs. Because one FPV could carry less load, so you put in 4 FPVs together and they're testing it. While night operation was a concern, see this. They have come up with small TI cameras, IR cameras, which are able to detect and modify and even hit such kind of vehicles in night. Organization structures, we talked about that the Russians have gone and changed the Reki strike complexes, mass production. Ukrainians have had special drone units like the Aerosvozika, a Brave One project, which I discussed. Now I come on to a thing, something more dearer and dearer to us, incorporation by People's Liberation Army. Now, these are propaganda photographs coming out from the Chinese. And when Eastern Command put up their tweet, the Chinese responses of how they will respond to counter FPV also enhanced. And see, these are the drone nurseries, FPV drone nurseries, which they are making, simulation labs where, of course, propaganda photographs will come out if something is happening. There cannot be a smoke without any fire. So this kind of a training which they are showing is happening. And that problem of what I was talking about, manned, unmanned teams. So there is a manned tank, there is an underground vehicle, there is an FPV drone and the crew. So that manned, unmanned team testing is happening as we speak. And the swarm of drones. So a swarm of FPVs being launched together, and this terrain we are very particular with. Next gets to the protection. Now, these are the kinds of nets and local modifications they are doing on tanks to withstand the FPV attacks. If this was one, see another. So various kind of modifications being done with the thing and being tested in urban battles and high altitude battles, how they're going to be undertaking such modifications. A Chinese e-wall. Group Captain Narang showed a whole set of Chinese things being copied. And this is one e-wall which the Chinese have gone and constructed. So it's a system which combines the radar detection, the shooters and everything together to make a e-wall so that any that area which has to be protected, any drone nearby gets taken care of. If I have to sum up key takeaways, they surely within this small drones technology, the Iranians, Chinese, Russian, and Ukrainians have come ahead of the others. So it's clear indication, it's well within the Indian talent which we hold to overcome and lead the world in it. Asymmetry. There's a famous statement by, I'm forgetting someone from the Polish or this thing, that the quantity used by Russians cannot overcome the quality of few odd fantastic air defense you'll have. If the quantity, so while quality is undoubtedly very important, the quantity at some time is going to be asymmetry and particularly low cost quantity. So it's important. Every day you hear in the US media or the US social media, the rogue drones. The quantum of rogue drones is enhancing, the quantum is increasing. You hear of a Starlink terminal being formed somewhere. So understand, link the two dots together. Rogue non-state actors with such small, cheap drones. I could assemble a quarter FPV drone in 50,000 bucks, and the cost is only going to get cheaper. So please understand, it's a very important thing which you have to cater for. The wider range of stakeholders, civil military fusion, whole of nation approach, the stakeholders are far too many, and everyone, Gati Shakti is a prime way we have gone about in borders. Same has to be applied on a counter drone grid. The production capacities. Are you going to be able to handle the thousands of drones in 1 month production? sometimes that needs to be validated because combat sustenance will depend on such issues. And while standardization is required, collaborative innovation requires that the local formations get entangled with the local firms. I have suggested a way of getting this ideation to induction. You know, you imagine idea, you ideate in the battle space, apply it, use it dual purpose. I will give you an ideal example. Today, there was a video, the parents are sitting and gone for a boat ride. So they're in a lake enjoying the boat right next to their home. They asked their son to send a coffee. So what does the son do? He takes off a small FPV drone, accurately flies till the boat where the parents are there, and delivers hot coffee. Now, if the son can do it, surely that same son can deliver wonderful ammunition on the battlefield. So that innovation dual purpose, incubation period has to be reduced. The trials have to be battle tested on the battlegrounds as close, and that has to be free of cost so that the startups get motivated. The induction has to be joined, not only within the services, the CAPF, everyone together. The indoctrination, the doctrine period has to be much, much faster. The industry has to get intelligentized. You know, that is how the mass production will happen. 100% indigenization. You can't rely on a single component on some and then be held to sway during a war. Implementation and integration. Integration has to be combined arms cross service. You can't have one individual arm or service leading it. It has to be combined arms and cross service. Psychological resilience is extremely important, and I leave it at that. Everyone understands what needs to be done in such an environment. So now I'll hand over to General Mandeep and request him, and Priyanka, please take on.
Thank you, sir. Now I would like to welcome Major General Dr. Mandeep Singh, SM, DSM, retired. Currently a distinguished fellow at the United Service Institution of India, General Singh has served as the head of the East Asia Center at IDSA and held visiting fellowships in renowned institutions like the Mercator Institute in Germany and CENJOWS, New Delhi. Post-retirement, he has continued his journey of innovation as the president of Drone Acharya Aerial Innovations Limited, a key player in the tech commercial drone space, and as an advisor to startups at IIT Roper and Global Ventures in Emerging Technologies. Today, he'll be speaking on indigenous FPVs production, Indian industry perspective. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for the introduction. Can you hear me, everybody? Can somebody just raise a hand?
Heard, sir.
Okay, Roger. Okay. So let me just go straight into, I just have 10 minutes, so I'll go straight into the subject, but I'll start with a disclaimer. Since I am president of Dronacharya, I have an interest. My company makes FPVs and we sell FPVs, so I must let this be very clear before I start the industry perspective. I must also say that the video that was shown in the beginning of this discussion, the FPVs there were our FPVs made by us. Right. I'll go straight into the military use. Right. So when we talk about military use of FPVs, I call them as RAK role, recce, arsenal dropping, and kamikaze. And now that is where I see the role of FPVs. In all my demonstrations, lectures, talk with formations, units on the ground, and number of them for the last 2 years, the biggest problem I find is that people are not able to understand the capability of the equipment. The FPV is a very simple, low technology equipment. And if I were to very basically explain it, it is like looking through the backside of a rifle and aiming the front foresight onto the target. The only difference here is that the backside is the VR goggles and the foresight is the camera of the FPV, and you are extending it by 3, 4, 5 kilometers, depending on the range. So essentially, the sensor and the shooter is one and the same person. That is the biggest advantage that FPV affords. Aside from the speed, it was mentioned, but let me just tell you, we achieved 129 kmph per hour at the Himadron at 17,000 feet. So ground in the plains, we have tested up to 150, 160. So when somebody is saying that there's an EW environment, yes, it is susceptible to EW environment. But if I come at you at 2 feet above the ground at 150 kilometers an hour in a direction that you do not know, it is extremely difficult and unlikely that it will be picked up. Yes, it is GPS independent. That is the biggest advantage that it accrues. But let me also tell you that a peculiar thing that we found, which has not been spoken about, is, and we were testing these in high altitude and in Sikkim, is that once you go out of the tree line, even mountains have a magnetic field. And there is magnetic interference which tends to affect the capability of the FPV and interferes with the signals. Another issue about FPV which is not discussed about is the pilot skill. In fact, FPVs is all about pilot skill. I give this example that, you know, it is like you have a driver, you know how to drive a car, you know how to drive a Maruti, but not every driver can drive a Lamborghini at say 300 kilometers an hour. And so an FPV pilot is a guy who's not, every drone pilot is not an FPV pilot. And it's a very, very niche requirement. A drone pilot, as per the DGCA, is trained in 40 hours or 5 days. An FPV pilot, as per Ukrainian standards, is trained in 21 days. And even that is not enough. And so actually, it's all about the pilot skill. And I tell a lot of people that you have these big male FPVs flying all over. These are very high technology, but a very low skill. A small, even an NCO Sepoy can fly it once he's, because it's all automated. But an FPV is the other way around. It's very high skill, very low technology. That is where it all comes about. Let me now take you as to what is, we talk about the industry-military disconnect. So the biggest issue I found is understanding the operational requirement. If the forces, if the user is not able to tell कि मेरे को चाहिए क्या, मैं use कैसे करूँगा इसको, then you're not able to get that product. To give you an example, I need to carry one FPV goggle, one VR goggle with say 4 FPVs. Could be, one goggle can fire an unlimited number of FPVs. So I need to carry it. उसको carry करने के लिए मेरे को एक sack चाहिए. उसको उठा के ले जाना मेरे को high altitude में जाना है. उसका वजन कितना होना चाहिए? उसकी concealment कैसी होनी चाहिए? उसको मैं जब use करूँगा मेरे को जगह चाहिए, कितनी जगह चाहिए? मैं किसके against use करूँगा? उसमें जंगल है तो जंगल के थ्रू मैं कैसे चलाऊंगा, ऐसे उड़ाऊंगा? The biggest problem I found was this, that we are not able to explain our operational need. The next thing, there is a sizable Chinese dependency. Let me be very clear about this. Flight controllers and receiver transmitters are still not Indianized. And so it takes a bit of a problem to get flight controllers and these RXTX. But again, the problem in our system is no Chinese. Please, let me make this clear. There is no Chinese, but there is something called non-Chinese. Non-Chinese means you can have any other country. There is no restriction on that. No Chinese is acceptable, but non-Chinese is possible. And so this, I've seen in certain TECs and interacting with people, ये नहीं चलेगा. If I'm able to source it from anywhere else, say a European country, what's the problem? It's accepted. R&D cost. It has been talked about. Startups do not have money. They don't have runway. Let me give you a simple example. IDEX से आपको 1.5 करोड़ रुपया मिलता है. अगर आप एक टीम बनाए 10 लोगों की, तो 1 लाख रुपए भी इंजीनियर को दें तो योर रनवे इज ओनली 1 year, 1.2 crores तो सैलरीज में ही चले जाता है. प्लीज अंडरस्टैंड, स्टार्टअप्स नीड सपोर्ट. और आप अगर उनको सपोर्ट नहीं देंगे तो दे कैनॉट deliver. One of the suggestions that I have given is, and this was in a seminar in the War College, that's been, I think, accepted the army and the others can consider, कि आप अपने cantonments, आपकी जो unit lines हैं, आपके जो sheds हैं, use them to incubate startups. एक startup को आज छत चाहिए, जगह चाहिए, बिजली चाहिए. That's it. और अगर मेंटर जो है जिसकी यूज करना है, if he is in the same area in the same location and I am meeting the person every day, then I can tell him कि सर मैंने कल ये काम किया है and can you please guide me or mentor me. And so that is the best way, I think, of incubating startups. Getting the industry to talk across the table is something that I seriously think is a need. I saw a small beginning at the War College, where at the seminar they had invited people from the industry. If you and I sit across the table and discuss what is your requirement, we'll be able to come with better solutions rather than just sending out an RFP. Just to give you an idea about the demand, 10,000 FPVs are being used a month by both Ukraine and Russia. And that's a small army. Look at the size of our army. It is my view that every OP officer, every recce troop of an armored regiment or a mech battalion, every intense surveillance section of an infantry battalion, every observer of the BSF or paramilitary forces has to be an FPV pilot. It is a must. Just imagine if I am going to wait to call for fire or to call for somebody to help me out rather than myself flying and destroying a target. That's the capability I have with the FPV. And so the numbers that are required are huge. The other issue is about, this is with the naval requirement. An interesting thing that happened, piracy at sea. Navy needs that. If I'm going to carry a weapon or a rifle and shoot at a oncoming boat, why can't I just use an FPV and do the same thing and neutralize him at 3 kilometers at sea? That is, it gives me that much, and the guy just doesn't even know from where he's been hit. And this has been done by us. We've tried it out at sea. So for naval guys, for Coast Guard people, please think of this option. ROPs, the counter-insurgency grade must have ROPs incorporated in there. ROP must have FPVs incorporated. Every QRT must carry FPVs. If I'm getting an input or an information that there is likely to be a movement or a harkat somewhere, I just fly my FPV. Advance में भेजा, recce किया, अगर recce किया clear है, अगर नहीं है, there's something there, just get the guy, knock him out. So I have designed an CI grid based on FPVs, where when an ROP is and a convoy is moving, how should one protect it? I see no reason why a hideout has to be physically assaulted. It has to just be blown up by FPVs. That is what is the essence of the FPV. Let me quickly talk about the other industrial issues. We have not yet reached any level of component manufacturing. 13,066 drones, as per one report, were sold in India in 2023. If one drone has 4 motors or 6 motors, that's not even 50,000 motors. 50,000 motors is what one order from one company overseas is accepted. Who will change his machinery to make motors unless there is a scaling up? unless there is an incentivization, unless there is orders. And that is why I keep coming to this issue that you all in uniform have to give a reasonable assurance to the industry that there is an order, that आपको ये order मिलेगा. As a start, अब शुरू तो करिए. चलो हम 50 ले लेंगे FPVs या 100 ले लेंगे, बाद में देखी जाएगी 10,000 की. तो पहले आप प्रूव तो कीजिए. But if there are no orders, if it's going to be finally going back into L1, then it's not working out. And that is where I come to this point of what I call the tyranny of reverse auction. आजकल आप L1 भी हो जाए, अब फिर भी आपको assurance नहीं मिलता है, क्योंकि उसके बाद शुरू हो जाता है reverse auction. और अब आप आ गए L1 और L2 के साथ, आपने भिड़ा दिया उनको और फिर झगड़ा हो गए. मैं आपको एक लाइव एग्जांपल दे रहा हूँ. 50,000 का पायलट प्रोजेक्ट 18,000 में चले गया, क्योंकि फिर आपने रिवर्स ऑक्शन में भिड़ा दिया. और क्या मिला आपको? सब स्टैंडर्ड. So we have to look at these things, these issues that affect the industry.
Sir, we'll request for the time part, sir.
Last point is about training. Please, the focus of anybody who's wanting to induct FPVs, आप training पे जोर दें. Training is the essence of an FPV pilot. And training is not easy. It requires specialization. It is for 21 days minimum. And that program can always be discussed in detail. But I think these are some of the issues that concern us. I thought I'll raise it. I finished over here.
I'll request Commander Abhimanyu Arya to please go ahead. He wanted to convey some issues.
Is that concerning me?
No, sir. Commander Abhimanyu Arya from Adani wanted to give his industry perspective.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. You're joined.
Yes. Am I audible, sir?
Hi, you're audible.
Good morning, General Ashok, esteemed members of the panel, and online members and my colleague. It's both an honor and a privilege to be part of these discussions. And I must commend the efforts taken by CENJOWS in tackling and bringing up the very valid issue which all our paramilitary forces and armed forces are facing at this juncture. In the current geopolitical landscape, the importance of robust defense capabilities cannot be overstated. India confronts a myriad of challenges, both along our borders and the international arena. The nature of these threats requires us to remain vigilant and prepared. And our national security is contingent not only on military prowess, but also our capacity to adapt a very evolving threat environment. With this, the nature of warfare has transformed dramatically over the past few decades. Traditional paradigms are yielding to a new era of cutting-edge technologies. And this topic actually brings out the correct realm, what we are facing and what the new challenges are ahead of us. More on this integration of this technology into military operations enhances speed, efficacy, and precision. Also, there is a necessity continually upgrading our defense capability to meet the current challenges. With this advancement in modern warfare in the drone tactics has emerged as an indispensable asset, which was clearly brought out by the previous speakers, which giving the examples of recent Ukraine conflict and ongoing Hamas conflict, where different technologies are being both tested from both the sides of the adversaries. It is a kind of a cat and a mouse who wins the war. One technology, by the time you have a counter to that, a new era evolves and a new technology is there in the market, which is cost effective and easily available from all the sources, which has already been brought out during the last discussion by the speakers. While the drone technology has a significant advantage, they also present considerable threats. And the threats we know are very much there. It is already the world is facing out in both the ongoing conflicts. Not only with this military use, these drones are also being used for smuggling and the contraband items, which our forces, our border security forces and other people are countering on a daily basis. So in response to these challenges, now there was a need, as covered by General Mandi, that the industry leaders has to step up. With this, 2 years back, Adani Group ventured into a counter-drone technology, marking a significant milestone into our defense strategy. And our commitment was to develop an advanced indigenous system which can counter these threats and evolve the system to meet the emerging threats in future as well. With this, sir, I would like to present a presentation to go forward with it. Is the screen visible, sir?
It's seen. It's seen.
So as we know that this is for our group, which is basically are into the nation building. We have catered for the different verticals for the food security, logistics chain, energy security, climate change, and the most important pillar, which is a national security, which is where the Adani Defense and Aerospace is venturing to get a niche technology to our security agencies. People call it their businesses where we call it B2B, B2C, and we call them B2S, which is business to the security of the nation. Just a brief portfolio where the Adani Defense lies and which has been incubated by Adani Enterprise. With this vision, which I covered in the last 2 years, we have built in a facility at Hyderabad, wherein our unmanned aerial vehicles and counter drone systems are being developed. And this is a testimony of the efforts which have been taken at a very progressive pace, wherein a niche technology which was not available was made available to our forces in a quick time. The recent example is the Drishti Starliner, which has been inducted with Navy and Army. Now with the core strategy of a group, which is being planned in for the coming years, you can actually visualize the importance which we have envisaged and given to a counter drone system, wherein this portfolio, wherein unmanned system, AWACS and counter drone system is the area where we are focusing in every day to tackle the need of the forces. The other areas where the Adani Defense is pursuing is into missiles, where we are having a lot of indigenous programs with DRDO and with the defense forces. Again, the matter of interest for kamikaze drone, which the reliance and intake in the army is very much was clear. And apart from that, the ammunitions, small arms, artillery guns, and rotary platforms are the other niche areas where we are focusing to strengthen our defense forces. I will not dwell into much further into these, and I will come to exactly what we need in today's time. So the counter drone system is required not only for the defense establishments, they are also very much valid and is required a prerequisite in all the VAs and VPs, where all the LECO threats is always evident. And for that, we need to have a robust system guarding both urban, rural, and the domestic fronts and the military establishment as well. So these are the glimpses which are there from our establishment, our factory, where we have been in partnership with DRDO. We have developed a D4 system. Also, we have also gone ahead to develop an advanced counter drone system, which has a capability of detection, neutralization at a range of 10 kilometers with of a RCS of 0.01 square meter target as well. So this system is an integrated solution which can solve, detect the class of UAVs, and also can give an answer to neutralize swarm drones as well. We have both soft kill techniques, solutions, and as well as hard kill solutions, where we are the only company who has developed indigenous laser source which can neutralize a target up till 1 kilometer, and we are in process of developing a heavy laser more than 3 kilometers as well. As we have covered earlier, that the system, a counter drone system, should have an element for detection. So this counter drone system, which we call as Rudrav, has a detection sensors like radar, which is an ASA X-ray band radar. We have a SIGINT, which detects RF signals up to a range more than 10 kilometers with a band of around 400 megahertz to 6 gigahertz and can be extended as per the customer's requirement. We have an electro-optic system, which gives you a visual identification of the drone. And then we have an interdiction system as a jamming system, which operates from 400 megahertz till 6 gigahertz with standard and non-standard frequencies. We also have an hard kill system, which and a place of handheld jammer gun, which was talked about by previous speakers, and a laser system. Also, this system is integrated with your AD guns as well. The best part of the system is it's so user-friendly that it can be operated by a single person. It is enabled by AI and ML, which fuses the data into a command and control center, which a single man operations can do. So this is a visual depiction of the features of radar as I had covered. This is an overview of the capability of the system, where we have a capability of takeover, a jamming, and a neutralization by laser sources as well. And with the great pride, we can tell the audience in this seminar that this system is being deployed at our locations and are being actively employed at the strategic locations with the paramilitary forces as well. And we are ongoing with our cases with Army and Air Force as well. So this is one-stop solutions which we are focusing, which will change the dynamics of counter drone operations. We have also undertaken successful demonstration at the airport and other VAs and VPs. So with that, I have finished. If any questions, I'm open for any questions in case if there are any. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Now I would like to welcome Mr. Navneet Singh from Kepler Space. Mr. Navneet Singh is the founder and CEO of Kepler Aerospace, a space-based persistent surveillance startup founded in 2018-19. He completed his bachelor's degree in aerospace engineering and intelligence and defense studies from Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University, USA, where he developed a strong interest in using space technology for defense and intelligence. Upon his return to India, he worked on the Indian NEM satellite program at ISRO as a systems engineer during 2015 to 18. After founding Kepler Aerospace, dedicated to space-based electronics warfare, he has been helming Kepler's operations for all its space and defense projects. Some of the noteworthy projects he has executed at Kepler are the Naval LCA Tejas data link, Abhyas drone data link, and BioWest avionics for Gaganyaan. Today, he'll be speaking on FPV protection via EW and EW resilience FPVs for future warfare. Over to you, sir.
Hello, guys. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right. First of all, thank you for this opportunity to discuss such an important topic among such esteemed gentlemen. And so as a company, we are into electronic warfare systems, including anti-drone systems. We have deployed anti-drone systems both for vehicles, handheld, as well as fixed installations with a range of almost 10 kilometers. These are deployed systems in service. So these are just some of the things that we have learned about how to counter UAVs and FPVs, as well as the present scenario. So I'll be discussing what's happening worldwide and what is the future and how can FPVs be integrated successfully into the armed forces. So first I'll start with my actual overall abstract of my discussion. ECM, which is electronic countermeasure. Electronic countermeasures is a cat and mouse game, right? It is not just enough to make something and that works. Things change on the battlefield. There's a reason why it's called ECM, then it's ECCM, then it's ECCCCM. So it's electronic countermeasure, then you have electronic countermeasures, then you have electronic countermeasures. So it's a cat and mouse game. You do something, the enemy reacts, you react to it. So it's an action reaction type thing. Everything changes on the battlefield. No plan survives the first contact with enemy. General Patton used to say that is very, very viable when it comes to FPV warfare. It's a pure Darwinism survival. You have to adapt, you have to change, or you die. That's a very simple fact of the battlefield, and that applies completely to the FPV warfare that we are seeing. So what have we seen presently that's happening in Ukraine, or what's happening in, let's say, even in Lebanon and Gaza areas? We see that on-the-fly innovation, iterative development, and the lessons learned from the battlefield integrated into your drone ecosystem is the way forward. It's not just enough to just buy the drones. You cannot depend on the vendors to just make the drones for you and give it to you, because the lessons learned and the iterative development cycle that you need will not survive. I don't know about the enemy, but it will not survive your procurement cycles. So how do you fix that? You have to not just buy the drones, you have to learn, you have to innovate. It is imperative that the foot soldiers, and I'm not going to say just the officers of the army or the officers of the armed forces should be experts. I am talking enlisted soldiers. I'm talking Agniveers, whoever is there with any kind of technical exuberance should be trained not only to fly drones, but to maintain them, but to build them, but to design and work on them. That's the only way you can innovate. Battlefield knowledge is gained by the soldiers deployed, and they are the best place to actually come up with the first prototypes to counteract what they are seeing. And this has been very, very vocal in Ukraine. Now, coming to some of the things that my fellow speakers talked about, rapid prototyping is becoming very, very important, especially what we are seeing in other areas. Forward deployed 3D printers in machine shops should be normalized. They should not be a unique phenomenon only for engineering battalions or EME, but they should be with every single regiment. Every single regiment should know how to operate good 3D printers. They should know how to do 3D design. They should know how to manufacture these things on the fly. That is very important. And the industry will come forward and support with forward deployed 3D printers, machine shops in a container box. A 40-foot container will have everything: metal 3D printing, normal 3D printing, machine shops, etc. And also, there is a very weird thing that people just want the best of the best of the best. People, army will come up with a requirement and it has to be the most insane requirements that you ever seen. The JSQRs are like, they're an amalgamation of every single drone on the market, and they want everything in one shot in L1. That does not work out when you are looking to mass manufacture. You should accept cheaper innovations. You should accept easier innovations that can be mass manufactured, because as Stalin once said, quantity has a quality of its own, right? So you need to have more drones, but it does not matter that the drone has to be extremely advanced. It can be the cheapest drone that you can build out of spare parts in a box in your foxhole on the border. That is the kind of innovation that we are talking about. And as I said before, you cannot depend on back-end R&D. You cannot depend on DRDO. You cannot depend on the industry to come up with the next system or change as per the battlefield requirements. Every soldier is an engineer at this point of time. That's the only way you can tackle the drone swarms that are coming your way. And in the end, remember, FPV is your personal fire support. Every soldier should be trained on it. Why? Because it may not hit like a 155, but it will surely hit to kill. It will hit to kill something. It may not kill the entire regiment of guns firing at you, but it will make sure that the enemy can retreat or will be forced to retreat. So learn to use, adapt to survive, and become innovators, not just buyers. And when I say adapt to survive, remember the lessons that we are talking here today. Similar conversations are happening in China, Pakistan, and our enemy nations. They are also learning the same things that we are. So the only way out is to adapt to survive. So that is the abstract of what I'm going to talk about. Now let's talk what we are seeing. So drones are evolving every day as per mission and battlefield requirements. They are modular, they are switchable, they're adaptable. The best case scenario that we have seen is Ukraine. For example, here you can see an enemy BMD. BMD is an airborne IFV for the airborne forces, which has a very, very expensive electronic warfare suite sitting right on top of it. But it's about to be taken out by an FPV drone. The question is why? Because unless and until your electronic warfare is completely intelligent, it is super intelligent, not fixed at all, no fixed frequencies. Fixed frequency electronic warfare is obsolete. That is the truth, whether you want to accept it or not. But fixed frequency electronic warfare is obsolete completely. So how do you tackle that? That is a question. So these drones, they are adaptable by itself because they are learning from the environment. If you see here, this is a completely 3D printed drone. And it's not even very expensive. The overall BOM cost for this drone in the middle, that is actually the one attacking the BMD on the top, the overall cost is about 10,000 rupees. Except for obviously for the grenade. The warhead is, a repurposed RPG-7 grenade. But it's 10,000 rupees. It has been 3D printed in a forward deployed 3D printer, which is less than 30 kilometers from the front. And it manages to take out an enemy BMD. Similarly, if you see this drone here, this is an example of an adaptable drone. I will talk how. Remember when I said fixed frequency electronic warfare is obsolete? This is why. If you see this, excuse me once. If you see this drone over here, again, as I said, adaptability is the name of the game. This drone is operating on 27 megahertz for telemetry telecommand. I have not seen any of our jammers that are being purchased, that are being tendered, that jam 27 megahertz. And it's not new. It's not like they came up with brand new technology. It is a very old system. Futaba 27 megahertz controllers and communication systems have been around for a very long time. So adaptability is the name of the game. You remember I talked about that drone and I said it's adaptable. How? You see these antenna inputs. That drone is able to change its telemetry and telecommand channels on the fly or by the operator before launching. The operator can survey the battlefield, and it can survey the battlefield, and based on that he can change the frequency of operation. It has a RF switch. It can operate on any band that is required. Similarly, as I said, fixed electronic warfare is obsolete. Technology can be old, technology can be new. All you need to know is how to utilize it. For example, there has been a deluge of fiber optic drones, right? You see, this is a fiber optic package that has been manufactured by a Ukrainian company. This is one by the Chinese companies. 10-kilometer range, 15-kilometer range fiber optics. But the thing is, fiber optic is not a new thing. I mean, fiber optic ATGMs are there since the starting of ATGM revolution. The Faggot ATGM, the Sagar ATGMs that were back in 1960s, they had fiber optic guidance. So we are going back to that era of fiber optic guided systems. But why? Because fixed line systems, hard line, hard wire systems are impervious to electronic warfare. Similarly, other options are also. This is a old tech system. For example, this, if you see, this is a DJI Air unit 03, right? It is used on DJI FPV drones. The new unit is able to shift its frequency on any band between 400 megahertz to 6 gigahertz. They don't do that for commercial systems because you have to adhere to certain frequency guidelines. But for military systems, there is no requirement to adhere to any frequency paradigm. How do you jam these things with a fixed frequency jammer? Coming to the third point, when I said cheap is not bad, it just depends on how you make it. If you see this drone that was captured from one of the Russian attacks, it's using a normal LTE modem. You remember those LTE modems that we used to have? Oh, LTE stick aata tha that you used to put on a laptop and get internet back then when Wi-Fi was not very prevalent. They are using something like this with a Raspberry Pi Micro, which costs like $400 on Amazon, and they are making a complete drone out of it, which is guided by 4G LTE signals, not even normal drone communication channels. So innovation, iterative development is the name of the game. Now coming to other point, advancements, right? How are advancements coming into the drone sector, in the FPV sector, that are changing the way warfare? If you see this very interesting drone that was recently found by the Russians, it's a Ukrainian drone. You'll see that the drone does not have any, it does not have many things except it has one antenna and one camera. It's an ISR drone. That's it. One antenna, one camera. But it has a cooling fan on top of the drone. Why? Because it is actually using a Coral AI board. It's an AI system on the drone, because advancements in AI have made it so that you can have completely intelligent drones that do not require GPS, that do not require operator guidance. They can do computer vision on their own. And with such miniaturized systems, the capacity to do computer vision is extremely high. So they are able to target, distinguish extremely well. And with cameras such as thermal cameras and other kinds of cameras that are already miniaturized, you are able to negate the enemy advantage of night, smoke, day, any day. But these are the advancements that are happening in the field. When I say you need to have rapid prototyping, you see the stack of drones, right? This stack of drones is completely 3D printed. Each frame that you see was printed with PPS GF, which is a polycarbonate glass fiber system, printed on a commercially available 3D printer called Bamboo X1E, which you can buy right now for 2 lakh rupees online. Each drone costs less than 300 rupees to print. And you can print one drone every 3 hours. Imagine having 4 printers printing one drone every 3 hours for 2 days. That is the capability for a forward deployed machine shop and a 3D printer shop to churn out drones as quickly as possible, to assemble them and send it out to the battlefield. That is how you target the quantity differential between us and the others. Now, GPS jamming is all the rage, but again, there are multiple ways to negate it. If you see this antenna system, this is called a CRPA antenna. A CRPA antenna has multiple small antennas that can negate GPS jamming completely. This is from a this is from an Iranian Shahed 136 drone. Of course, there are FPV versions of this, but again, fixed frequency EW is dead, is what I'm going to say in the end. So how are people now innovating there? For example, recently a document was published called Algorithm for Affordable Vision-Based GNSS Denied Strapdown. Celestial navigation. Drones are now using cameras that are on top of the drone to look at the stars and navigate. You can jam the drone, cannot jam the night sky. I mean, if you can jam the night sky, then you have bigger issues. But that is the capability that people are working on the edge. If you see here, this is a portable 3D printer that has been developed for the US Department of Defense. They are willing to have Chinook portable systems with metal 3D printing, ceramic 3D printing, normal 3D fiber reinforced 3D printing with machine shops inside. This system can basically have a drone factory operating 15, 20 kilometers from the front line, churning out drones every day. Combine this with a, with a solar power plant or something of that size, and suddenly you have a full-fledged drone manufacturing capacity in Leh while there is a conflict raging in Depsang. That is the capability that we should be pushing. That is the capability that we should be pursuing. Now, coming to this, if you see this interesting drone, this drone does not require GPS. It does not require a pilot. It does not even require communications. It requires nothing. You see, these cameras are 3D recognition cameras. It is able to create a complete point cloud of its entire surroundings. You take this system, it's an FPV. You take it, you throw it into a room or you throw it into a house. It will give you a complete point cloud of the house down to 5 millimeters accuracy for you to have a complete indoor map without you ever entering. These are the kinds of innovations that are already happening for EW resilient drones. That is the kind of capability that we are looking at, right? So now coming to, how do we tackle, right? As I said, fixed frequency electronic warfare is obsolete. There are other options. One is called DRFM based electronic warfare, where you listen to the drone frequency and then you jam it. That combined with the latest advancements in AI as well as onboard GPU compute, you can tackle that, you can do that. But as I said, drones keep changing, FPVs keep changing. There are going to be options where there will be no communication, no GPS, nothing. How do you jam those? You cannot jam those. So the only way forward is kinetic kill. Now, kinetic kills such as lasers, high power microwave systems are expensive. You can't deploy them en masse. It is very hard to deploy them en masse. So what is the future? The future is guided weapon systems, such as having strapped down weapon systems on MMGs, which are commonly deployed by the forward deployed battalions. So MMGs, HMGs, they are the ones that will actually be tasked with shooting down the drones. Mounting a small system, which is like a remote control weapon system with LRF and EO guidance is the way forward. But we have seen an interesting phenomenon in Russia. I mean, reject modernity, return to tradition. So many times we have seen that soldiers have managed to take down FPV drones with shotguns. May not be the ideal case scenario, may not be the best case scenario, but it is a stopgap solution to what is happening in the future. So the point to ponder is this: how do you tackle FPV drones, which are becoming tinier, intelligent, and non-communicative? They are silent drones. To detect silent drones, you need radars. To kill silent drones, you need kinetic kill systems. But how do you miniaturize it and deploy it with every soldier in the field is the question that has to be pondered by not only the armed forces, but also by the industry. So yeah, that's all from my side, sir.
Thank you, sir. Now I would like to invite Commander Yudhir Sahani, retired. Commander Sahani is telecommunications specialist with 35 years of experience in defense, aerospace, and education. Whilst in the Navy, he was responsible for the induction of the latest technology for the Navy's communication infrastructure, updating the policies to keep pace with the technology and making sure the people were trained to exploit the technology. Post-Navy, he was head communications at Tata Power Strategic Electronics Division, followed by a tenure at Rockwell Collins, a Fortune 500 global company in the aerospace sector. He is now an independent consultant in the field of defense and aerospace. Today, he'll be speaking on the detection of small drones. Over to you.
Commander Yudhvir, could you hear us, please? Commander Yudhvir, can you hear us, please? Commander Yudhvir, you would have to unmute yourself. You're not heard. Okay. If Commander Yudhvir is not there, we have a whole set of questions which are lined up. And if he joins in between, we'll give him the option to continue. We'll take this whole set of questions one by one because they're not lined up. There is Sheikh, ex-Air Force veteran, who says, a quick question out of curiosity. When products, systems, subsystems, motors, FCS, that is fire control system, remote control are imported from overseas market, who are all the certifying agencies that ensure that these products comply with local regulations, safety standards, and quality requirements? This is not about DGCA, SIMLAC, etc. Product, systems, equipment certification refers to the formal process through which a product, system, subsystems, or piece of equipment is assessed and certified to meet public specific performance, quality, and regulatory standards specifically brought out from China or another country. This process is essential in various industries, including manufacturing, electronics, and automotive, as it ensures that products meet safety efficiency. We are still not self-reliant in manufacturing of motors or even the cells of the batteries. Regards. So I take it as a suggestion and not a question. We absolutely agree to you. And that's what Group Captain Naran brought out, that we need to have indigenized certification standards and suitable organizations with technical experts present in it and trying to do it. Very well brought out, point noted, and this is what we need to learn. Then we have
I just wanted to check if I'm audible now.
Yes, you can be heard. Please go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. I was speaking from a different device. Probably I was in the waiting room and not in the meeting. Can you share the presentation or should I share it?
You share it, please. You can share it. You can share the screen.
So, okay, listeners, we will hear Commander Yudhvir now. He's come online, and thereafter we'll revert back to the questions, including the first question, some inputs which we will share. Please go ahead.
Yeah, 1 second. Just looking at this presentation. So can you see the presentation?
Yes.
Okay. So today, good afternoon, gentlemen. Today I'm filling in for Mr. Pawan Kakkar. So please bear with me if what I'm speaking about does not match the slides. I have worked extensively with various equipment in the field of detection of small drones and tried them out in the real world scenarios in the field. You know, standard, we use radar and signal detection as primary modes.
Yudhvir sir, I'll request you if you could make it slideshow in your screen.
Okay, 1 sec.
Better visible, that's all.
No, can you share it from there? I'd send the presentation. Otherwise, I'll just continue without the presentation.
No,
I'll continue without the presentation.
Fine, sir, please continue without. No. Please have the
Yeah,
presentation on, sir. Please have the presentation on. Please have it on.
No, the issue was I was trying to speak from the another screen where I have something else, but if I have to share if I have to put it in presentation mode, there will be a problem.
No, you go ahead the way you want to, sir. Go ahead.
Yeah. So in case you can share the presentation from there, otherwise, whenever the appropriate slide comes, I will share it.
Okay.
So
you go ahead, please.
So just coming back, I've worked extensively in the field of detection of small drones, and I've tried them out in real world scenarios, giving various demos to various entities. We know we have radar and signal detection as the primary modes. And, since 2021, been witnessing almost the same presentations regarding drone detection. Nothing much has changed. We keep planning to design something that are based on requirements of yesterday and that we are going to receive day after tomorrow. But I would like to compliment General Mandeep Singh, who brought out a very crucial point regarding development, procurement, and induction issues. Brought out, you are going to buy very small numbers. It is difficult for companies without having any assured order to develop such high class equipment. And in the welcome address, I heard 3 key words: flying low, small RCS, and no signature. That limits the traditional air defense system in carrying out drone detection. Newer challenges are faced by anti-drone systems, especially when dealing with the DIY drones. The CISC mentioned that this is now a part of tactical warfare, and various other people are talking, every soldier should carry a drone, which can now be equated to an ammunition as per CISC. So we are going to encounter drones in less than war situation in real everyday life, and I'm sure people from the paramilitary forces who are sitting here are encountering drones on a day-to-day basis. Now, in order to avoid repetition of some items that I have already been said, I will share slides, my presentation from slide 5, and okay, I will first share my screen, then I can share my presentation. So, as we have discussed throughout the day, the FPV drones can fly at extremely fast speed. They can fly really low and very close to treetop levels. Difficult to detect them through radar. Can fly at extremely slow speeds or hover on close to the target. They can even fly it in GPS denied areas. They can fly on different frequencies which are not in the normal band that commercially available equipment can detect or jam. They are using fiber optic cable. I believe Russia has recently proved it up to 15 kilometers. And given the fact that most of the sensitive locations and the regiments have already built some countermeasure against drone, the FPV drones exploit unmonitored part of the spectrums. Air Force did buy something for some purpose, but FPVs were not even a talk that time of time. The radar cross section, Adani mentioned something like 0.1 meter, but they're much smaller. They're 0.02, 0.5. And we have actually worked on detecting small drones like the commercially available Phantom. A lot of tests has been done that ranges of 1.8 kilometers have been achieved. I'll come to that a little later. Most of the radars that are available are not able to look at these targets. You actually have to have specially drone detection radars that can detect this. There is a radar that has been available for quite some time now. They were one of the first movers into that field. I believe a lot of units have already got these radar. it is an X-ray band radar. There are few more radars that are there. I'm going to skip that and I'm going to come to the radar that I've actually worked with. So this is a R30 radar that has been made by Photon Technologies. Now, Photon Technologies has been into anti-drone systems for quite some time. They have provided to various armed forces, including the US. They are the ones who got the contract for protecting the 2021 Olympics against drone threats. It's a man-portable radar. Various demos have been carried out in India to Army, Navy, Air Force, to paramilitary agencies, to Bell. It's a very small system, transportable system, and it gives a very good and a very high probability interception rate. As you can see, small drone detection has been done at the range at the size of a drone at the size of Phantom has been detected at 1.8 kilometers up to 3.5 kilometers for the bigger UAVs. So I will finish the presentation and let me get back to the discussion. So I hope we are not running out of time.
We are a bit delayed, sir. If you have any points to cover,
No, so I would actually like to answer if anybody has any questions.
Noted. Noted. We'll go ahead, sir. Can we have the?
So this is a radar that has been tested and demonstrated to a lot of people. It is a radar that is manufactured by the US. You know, though wherever given demonstration, NCNC trials, this has passed the radar, and this is one of the very 3 or 4 radars available the world over, which actually has proven very successful in drone detection and has been commercially and employed in defense for drone detection. And going back to what General Manjeet had said, you know, it takes time for people to develop these things and orders, and there are a lot of constraints. So we should also look at proven technologies that are available in the field. That's what I have to say.
Thank you so much, sir. We'll now go down to question answers. There are a few questions on the chat box, so request you to go up a bit more up. Okay. So we get back to Jesse Ahmed had a question. What training protocols are necessary for operators to efficiently use FPV drones in combat situations? Jen Mandeep, sir, if you're there, would you like to take this on? Because you wanted to cover the training protocols for pilots. Okay.
Yeah. So let me just clarify this. Firstly, the DGCA rules do not include FPV training. There are no laid down norms at the moment for training of FPV pilots. The program and curriculum spoken about has been designed by us based on the similar program which is in vogue in the Ukrainian army. The second thing, restrictions and limitations on use of drones as written in Drone Rules 2021 apply to all FPVs. For example, they cannot be flown above 400 feet. At the moment, PV loss. Of course, for this uniform fraternity, these rules do not apply. Whether it's a military cantonment or a military garrison or BSF or CRPF or ITB garrison, these rules do not. I think they do not apply to paramilitary forces, but I've seen that it says Defense Forces of India, the rules do not apply. So whether it's Navy, Army, Air Force, I can speak with confidence. I'm not very sure about the others. Insofar as the training itself is concerned per se, while the DGCA norms say that it should be done by an instructor or a master, there are no such rules at the moment as far as FPV trainers are concerned. To give you an example, the FPV trainer that we have in my company is a 22-year-old young boy who's been filming videos and movies in studios in Bombay. But his capability is fantastic. So we have built around the training module based on his capabilities. We also have FPV pilots otherwise. So what I'm trying to say is that at the moment, training of FPV pilots has not been formalized in any government or rules or regulations.
Sir, to add, we can also train pilots the basic part, like what General Mandeep said was DGCA norms don't apply. It is very difficult for a normal drone pilot to come to FPV. Before he goes to a proper FPV pilot, there are simulators which are available commercially. Some of them are uncrashed, some of them are lift off. So normally it'll take around 15 to 20 hours for someone to work on these simulators and then come to a proper FPV pilot to learn. So these are commercially available for around 5 to 1,000 rupees. They are available on Steam. So some of the units are actually now working on them.
Oh, excellent idea. That's what
absolutely
it is.
Correct. Well brought
So
out.
you need
That's absolutely correct.
You need to first get a man on simulator, get him trained on simulator, and what exactly brought out the units can have the simulator softwares, train them, and then graduate onto the FPV. Point noted. The next question.
There's another.
Also, sir, actually happening is,
so we'll go ahead,
also
sir.
What is happening is, sir, you can train him with the same RC which he's going to fly. The same can be configured on the simulator.
Point noted. We'll go ahead, please. The next question is by Shailesh. He says, can we use legacy equipment like Searcher Mark 1 to be used as mothership for FPV drones, relay, and carriage? Same shall mitigate the range limitations. Okay, before I take it on, Navneet, would you like to add something here?
It is possible.
Navneet, are you there? Okay, I'll take it on. It's absolutely possible.
I'm sorry, sir. Can you speak again? Sorry, my bad. I was.
Okay. I'll just repeat the question which Shailesh has put in the chat box. He says, can we use legacy equipment like Searcher Mark 1 to be used as mothership for FPV drones, relay, and carriage? Same shall mitigate the range limitations. Would you like to add something before I take it on?
Yes. So utilizing mother drones as relay drones has been a very widely known phenomenon in Ukraine. The drones are called Baba Yaga drones. They serve as relays where the range of the FPV is extended by another 10 to 20 kilometers after being released from the mother drones. That is there. But there you have a communication fallacy that your relay drone can be taken out, which has happened multiple times. So Baba Yaga drones have become a target of priority for Russian electronic warfare as well as Russian SAM systems. So anytime a Baba Yaga drone is seen, they get shot down, and that leads to loss of connectivity for the further FPVs. So it is not that we cannot use such systems as relays. We can, but then your priority of platform protection and resilience of your mother platform becomes very important, because that can lead to further loss of more FPV units that are connected to that unit. So it's a completely valid usage. It is just that now you have a trouble of actually getting your things to be fixed on other sectors.
Okay, thanks, Navneet. There is 35 ITBP who's raising their hand for a question. So before I go back to chat box, 35 ITB, you had raised a question for a hand for your question. You may please ask your question.
Good afternoon, sir. Am I audible, sir?
Yes, you are audible.
Sir, sir, good afternoon. I am Assistant Commander Dinesh Singh from ITBP. And as Commander Sani just said, the drone rules do not apply to the tri-forces and as well as the armed forces. We have seen in the recent past that the army has been posing certain restrictions on the CAPF as far as ITBP is concerned, that we are not allowed to fly drone in the border areas. So
okay,
my point is,
so hold on, please.
There should be a
Please understand
coordination.
it's an open forum. Please understand it's an open forum. We got your point, understood, and we'll take it separately.
You can mail your query to
I just wanted
CENJOWS
to say, sir.
separately. We'll handle that.
No, we've
I
understood
just
your
wanted
point.
to say, sir, that there should be a central agency for coordination between the
Absolutely
all the
noted.
CAPFs.
We have noted your point. Absolutely, you're very valid. But please understand, this is not a closed forum. We've noted your point.
Sir. Noted, sir.
Okay. There is a question next by Manoj Kumar, or a suggestion, we'll just see it. Okay, Shailesh has put it first. He said many military veterans as DGCA certified instructors on drones. We may utilize their expertise as PPP to set up FPV. And we'll keep this in mind as a lesson. Then we have Manoj Kumar who says we must integrate fire and forget ensuring that technologies remain practical and relevant by streamlining development and deployment. Manoj, you are absolutely right. We have to integrate, and that is what we talked about, the ideation, incubation, and induction. And as General Mandeep and others also pointed out, with an assured degree of induction, and as Navneet pointed out also, adapt to survive. You need to ensure that the hand-holding is there, forward incubation centers, ideation centers, point noted, and we take on. Next, there is, I can't read the name. He says, Dave. Dave has a question. I have a question regarding how the army and defense sector support individual innovators. While I'm aware of the programs like IDX and TDF, the process can often be lengthy and there are concerns about not receiving responses or status updates on applications. Additionally, if I were to develop a product from scratch or improve an existing one, what kind of support can I expect from the defense sector, particularly in terms of financial assistance and testing? There is also a need of greater openness in sharing operational requirements and providing feedback when a product fails or lacks in certain areas. What are steps can be ensured to better communication and support through the development process? Now, please remember, apart from what ADB and IDX and these things which are happening, the formations are also undertaking numerous R&D projects. So you need to remain updated about this various research and development projects. You need to be on GEL because, there has to be a common platform. So all the different kind of R&D projects, I'll give you an example. There is an R&D project on for FPV itself. So you need to be a part of that process, get onto it, and put that.
Just an additional point for those who are not feeling satisfied with the existing models. We have in CENJOWS an approved system of industry interaction, wherein anyone who is working on the indigenous production can come back to us and we'll facilitate his key requirement. You can log into our website. The model of industry interaction is given on that. So that is again an issue-slice mechanism so that what will be your main challenge that we will try to facilitate to enhance the nation's capacity in the indigenous domain. And balance are the structured things in multiple domains, which are available and known to you.
Okay, next is Arjun. Navneet, please listen to his question. Arjun has a question that can FPVs are jammed by initiators of ECM. What is the frequency band used in FPVs yet?
Actually, the answer to that is every band is being used by FPVs these days. Any antenna that you can fit on an FPV is being utilized for FPV guidance. We have seen frequencies. We have seen frequencies from 27 megahertz. I have seen frequencies in 3.6 gigahertz. I have seen frequency in 1.3 gigahertz. I have seen frequency in 5.89 gigahertz. Basically, the point is FPVs are being utilized in every single frequency that's not being jammed. And anytime the frequency is being jammed, they're jumping to some other frequency. So that's the whole point of me telling and me saying that fixed frequency electronic warfare is dead. You can no longer deploy a fixed frequency anti-drone gun or an anti-drone system and hope that it will protect you. It will not. FPVs are intelligent now. They change. Every day there is a new frequency. You should really, I follow a lot of Ukrainian and Russian Telegram channels. And it's hilarious that every 3 hours, there is a notification of a new FPV frequency being detected on the front line.
Sir, I would submit one thing. When we are planning to jam, we have to look at two perspectives. One is the radio frequency, which Navneet correctly said, it's going from 27 to higher. You have 27, you have 433, you have 915, they give better penetration. They are switching, but one has to understand, like the videos which were shown, on the videos, you have two type of systems. One is the digital systems in which the Chinese have a monopoly, the DJI, the Voxnail, SG0. The other ones in which the video has been shown of that guy of the Eastern Command video and the last video of the Ukraine guy who's tracked. The video frequencies usually are at 5.8. So if you can cut the video link, irrespective of whether the radio link is there or not, the operator is blinded. So Navneet, that's what my question to you was. 5.8 is the predominant video link and analog. Why do you need to cut the radio link? You can cut just the video link.
I will comment on that also, Major Jairaj. That's a very good pertinent point. Telemetry channels and video channels are two different channels, right?
So you
Here
cut
is
the video
something.
channel.
Allow Navneet to answer, please.
Here is, I agree with you. Cut the video channel. The guy is blind. He can only control. He can't see anything, right? That's an excellent strategy. Two issues with that strategy that have already been done. One, majority of FPV drones have an overwatch drone looking over the actual attack. Second, which are actually sitting right next to the drone pilot and telling him what to do. Second, now there are video transmission modules in UHF band. There are video transmission modules in L band. There are video transmission modules in 3.2 megahertz band, 3.2 gigahertz band. The problem for what you just said is SDRs, software defined radios. They can change, they can transmit data on any band that can support the data rate. And I'll tell you one more thing. I have seen drone videos, FPV drone videos, where the video is at like 10 FPS, 15 FPS, but the pilots are trained so good that they can actually target and they can actually guide the drone at that low data rate video. Your bit rate is no longer a concern. It's not that everything has to be 5.8. No. As I have been saying again and again, we are seeing this in the field. Software defined radio has changed the game. You can no longer think that acha 5.8 is the video band, I'll jam it. Nope. I have actual videos. I have actual.
Okay, Navneet, yeah, we'll go ahead. Please, there are enough questions. We'll go ahead. The next question is what is the future of conventional weapon and conventional soldiers, as I see that FPV will be a personal weapon. Now, please understand, FPVs cannot cater for the quantum of disruption. There is something called point square inch of destruction potential. It can't match the artillery shells. So it is used for direction. That is what it is, not just a personal weapon, it is used for direction. There are so many things. It is not saying that the conventional weapon is out. It is one additional tool which is quite disruptive, available, and evolving the warfare. So we have to keep that in mind. Next question, how much effect do the existing anti-drone measures have on swarm drone? What's the scope for the same through R&D? There is excellent scope through R&D. But first part, Navneet, would you want to take it on?
Actually, again, the point is, if your swarm drones are operating, as Major Jairaj correctly pointed out, on available frequencies, on commercially available frequencies, your normal anti-drone systems will wreak havoc. They will kill everything, which is good. But the problem is, in a peer-to-peer conflict, if you're fighting against, see, for example, recently there was some chatter about militants in Bandipur and Kashmir using communication systems on Meshtastic network. And it's hilarious because I have said Meshtastic here, I'm pretty sure, and please don't mind me saying this, many of you will not even know what Meshtatis actually is, but it's actually a communication platform where you can create an ad hoc mobile network on LoRa frequencies. So the point is, it is viable till the time your enemy does not innovate. But the day the enemy starts innovating, your systems go out for a toss. So present systems against commercially available systems are extremely effective. But when you start fighting a peer-to-peer conflict, those systems are extremely ineffective immediately.
Sir, my question here was all the major targeting a particular drone. When it comes to swarm drones, basically the amount of drones present, I was looking for any high power or anything which is going that direction.
Hold on, you've got your mobile on.
I can't hear you, madam.
Arunima, your mobile is on. you need to switch off your mobile or keep it in the same mode and then speak your question.
Okay, I think ma'am is asking that she has seen videos of multiple swarm drones. So she's saying quantity over quality. I mean, quantity. How do you take down a quantity of swarm drones? Is that a correct question, ma'am?
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay, so I will guide you to something called it's under testing by the US Armed Forces called Epirus HPM system. Epirus is able to take down swarms and swarms of drones. It does not matter as long as your drones are in the antenna field of view. You can jam everyone if they're on a similar frequency. You can fry everyone if you're on an HPM. It's not an issue. Swarm drones, basically, I'll tell you, there has been a recent debate about viability of F-35 against swarm drones, which I find it to be extremely stupid reasoning there, because F-35, the electronic warfare suite on an F-35 with its ASA based system can fry an entire swarm of swarm drones from 50 kilometers. No problems, no questions. So it's not an issue, ma'am. It is kinetic kill, works almost every time, depending on how much power are you willing to pump into the system. If you know,
Okay,
there was a
Navneet,
saying.
Navneet, hold on, please. We've hardly got 10 minutes left.
Sorry.
Sam has got, and you are absolutely right. Very valid points, but we just go ahead. Sam has a suggestion. I suppose AD at tactical level is everyone's responsibility. Acknowledge anti-aircraft LMG, NSVTs on tank and nominated BMP, etc. in mechanized forces, like it was mentioned, scalability and cost are critical factors in countering FPV proliferation. And hence, kinetic solutions on legacy systems require special fragmented ammunition, improved sights again to smart process. Point noted, and it's absolutely acknowledged. Next, there is a from Headquarters Northern Frontier ITBP. A national policy on FPVs as an institutional response is required for a holistic approach towards FPV threats and adopting the technology, especially for forces. Integrated approach, similarly to similar military fusion as done by PRC, is required. A very, very valid point, and we are working on it. And this whole chair of excellence cycle is for that, and how the policy needs to be developed. It's an excellent suggestion, and we'll be surely highlighting at the relevant levels. Having said that, how can security forces adapt and implement evolving technologies, FPVs at institutional level, considering the rapid evolution and changes in technology and tactics on the battlefield? At the forces level, how can the authorizations, inventory, management, training, protocol, R&D be effectively managed to ensure effective operational response in alignment with national policy? Now, please understand, the national policy is one issue, but the way warfighting is evolving, the way what Navneet was highlighting, is that the innovations at the battle space is in front of battle space, which is happening. So you can't be depending on national policy. While national policies will take place, it is the formations, the local CFPs which have to get integrated. And FPV is not something so costly that you can't do it at local level. So my point is absolutely there. There are what the Russia and Ukraine battle have shown is that the local innovators, the local firms, the local startups are integrating with the formations and then coming up with a solution. And technical defense clusters like ADB, IDEX, Aditi, those projects are on. So everyone has to get integrated, innovate, and come up with a solution. I'll move on next. Jairaj, you said okay for radio jamming. Point is noted. Then again, do we have any information regarding capabilities and performance on high FPVs and high altitude conditions in mountainous terrain? So I'll, General Mandeep has done that trial. I'll give that chance to Sir. Mandeep, sir, please go ahead, sir.
Yeah, so we've tried this out both at Leh and at in Sikkim. There are issues. For example, I talked about there's EW, of course. There's magnetic interference. There is a huge problem of solidification due to ice, and especially when there is inclement weather, and that impacts the circuits of the FPVs. There is also a problem about the funnel effect due to wind speeds, which from while moving, from one valley to another can actually be quite destabilizing for an FPV which is flying, which is very small and which moves. The video transmission becomes very, very vague and distorted, especially when the wind speeds are very high.
So one more
To
issue that we have
add on,
faced.
yeah,
Sir, one
Jairaj, go
more
ahead.
issue that we have faced, and this is a very critical thing, is that for in high altitude, we must shift to lithium-ion batteries rather than lithium polymer. Lithium polymer has a tendency to bloat, and lithium ions will give you more endurance because they can be pushed up to 2.5 volts. Lithium polymer can only be pushed to 3.2. Similarly, if you use a lithium ion battery with a heating element, you'll get more endurance. That is
Exactly,
a very
Jairaj.
good point.
to be looked out.
Jairaj, you took out the words from my mouth. Absolutely, battery management is next issue. And what Jal Mandeep also talked about the blurring of the picture and the videos. So there are various solutions, and such an R&D project for high altitude is on, and work is on it. So there will be solutions which will be found, because even the Chinese tried to test a lot of these drones in high altitude, but they are not succeeded. So we have to work via media of how we can come up with better solutions and innovatively. There is nothing else in the chat box. If there is someone who has a question, may raise your hand or type it in the chat box.
I just
Yeah,
have a
there is,
clarification.
Yeah, so once again, Shailesh, please go ahead with your question.
Sir, I just wanted to highlight one thing which the group captain Narang was mentioning regarding the unmanned traffic management solution, sir. So, sir, basically we are aware that we are working on the project in Army, which is the CACC, Co-Aerospace Control Center, sir, for which the ON has been granted to BEL, sir. I was part of that project, and
Oh,
it
but
caters for
Shailesh, please, Shailesh, this is an open forum. So please clarify things as per that level. Just remember that whatever you speak next.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm abreast to that, sir. So I'll keep it that only. What I'm trying to say is that as and when that CACC comes up, sir, it should finally get integrated into the civil aerospace suits also, sir. Then only it will be effective, sir. That's my point, sir.
A point noted, taken. Jal Mandeep sir, you wanted to add on something.
That comment by Jal Mandeep will be the last one, and then we'll not be able to take on further questions.
So there are two issues. One is this mention about the mothership talk. See, this mothership use, whether it's a searcher or anyone else, is not a classic FPV. It's not a first-person view. So therefore, this is a mistaken use of terminology of mothership drones carrying FPVs. They don't carry FPVs. That is one. The second issue about what but Epicurus has a field of view. At the moment, it is 120 degrees only. And while they are testing it and bringing down drone swarms, if your swarm has a larger field of view of more than 120 degrees at the moment, it will still penetrate the HPM.
Okay, thank you, Mandeep. Now it's time for me to close the session. Center for Joint Warfare Studies, CENJOWS, is really grateful to each one of you to spare your time. The number of participants, which has gone up to 130 at some stage, indicates the area of concern by the defense forces, including Army, Navy, Air Force, all CAPF's representatives, the industry, and I think most of the stakeholders rose up to the occasion. Have joined this talk. We have not deliberated on this issue in totality because the subject is so much. But I must admit myself that some of you, especially from industry, have given certain solutions which we should have actually adopted long time back. But we will take those suggestions and we will more on that to the apex decision makers. In the run up to the same effort, because CENJOWS is focused on the war fighting more, we will be conducting a major seminar with all stakeholders on board on 6th of March. 6th March is the date?
6th March.
6th of March in Manekshaw Center or in DRD Auditorium, that we will be letting you know. So, should the industry want to be part of that, you can get in touch with us or with Brigadier Naran, and let's India become a major player, not only in the manufacturing of various drones, swarm drones, FPVs, and counter UAS systems, but also let it equip its forces, Army, Navy, and Air Force, with the potent force level training and guidance, and so that it can also save a lot of other high costly platforms. While it is true that the conventional platforms cannot be done away with, but I think if these recent trends are constructively and imaginatively utilized, the requirement will not be as pronounced as it is today. So with that note, I thank each one of you once again. Remain in touch because this is something which is a very, very serious issue where we wish to do a lot. So with that note, thank you very much. So kind of. Close. Close. Stop recording. Close.